Okay, well, if there's no more question, I think we can get
Mm,
started. Do
yeah.
you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. So VPNs. Now, so today we're going to be talking about VPN technology as in regards to commercial VPNs and privacy protection. And I
Okay.
decided to go for that because I felt like that's what would be most interesting to people.
Yeah.
So I tried to devise a plan this time, and I went for first of all there's the perspective of what I called Google. So this is essentially any company on the internet that you might be doing, business with, that you might have exchanges with.
Huh?
Then there is what your ISP can see. So it's another part. And then there is sort of a couple of other topics that we're going to cover real quick.
Okay.
Um okay. But to be honest, to understand those two in a little bit more detail, this is where the sort of IP routing foundation is important. So we won't
Okay.
get into too much details there. Okay. So let's get started. So let's say you don't have a VPN and you want to talk with Google. So let's draw that example. So this is your computer. Let's have the Google server. So when I say Google, like I said, it means any company that you might, have exchanges with over the internet. So it could be Google, Amazon, Facebook, Twitter, anything, any online service.
Okay.
Okay. So what usually happens when you want to talk to Google? So because we don't have that strong IP routing foundation, I'm actually going to be referring to a lot of these exchanges as if they were postal exchanges, as if we were exchanging letters. That's usually
Okay.
an analogy that's very accurate, actually, very quite fitting for quite a while. It's only really when we get into the nitty gritty of like the technicalities that it
Yeah.
starts being a bit wonky. But for what we're gonna do, it's perfectly fitting.
Okay.
So let's say you want to send Google a letter. So that could be, for instance, if we're talking a little bit technical, so it makes a little bit of sense. This is like you want to send an HTTP request.
Yeah.
Okay. Or even HTTPS, let's say. So what happens to it? Well, to that HTTP request, from a technical perspective, you're going to be encapsulating it in an IP header. And again, not going to go into too much details as to what that means. But in practice, it's like we have, on the one hand, we have the actual letter that we wrote. So that would be the HTTP request. That's the letter we wrote. And then we put that letter in an envelope. And that's what happens when we add that IP header. Okay?
Yep.
Does this make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So all that to say, what do you have on an envelope usually when you send a letter?
Well, where it is going
Yes.
stamps so that like it can pass through the borders if it needs to,
Right.
and then
And sometimes
also,
it also has the source address, right? Where it's coming from.
yep,
The
just in
sender
case it needs
address.
to be sent back.
Right. So let's say that this is John Smith, and obviously this is Google. So when I'm gonna add, anytime I have an envelope like this, I'm going to
Yeah.
assume that on that envelope is written the source address and the destination address.
Okay.
So for instance, here we have an envelope that's going from John Smith to Google.
Yeah.
So what happens to it? What happens when you send a letter? You put it in the PO box, and then what?
It gets taken to the post office.
Yeah.
Then it is sent from the post office to, I want to
To
say, a warehouse, but I'm not sure.
yeah, another place, and then maybe it gets sent to Google eventually somehow. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't really know the details. But one thing that I do know for sure is that my letter is going to be handled by a bunch of people, right? Whatever their jobs are, whatever their qualifications are, whoever they may be, however many of them they might be, I know for a fact that there are going to be people manipulating that letter that I'm sending. Okay, do I know these people?
No.
Can I
Or
trust
not
these people?
normally.
Well, normally I don't know
Unsure.
them, right?
Not
So,
sure if you can trust them or not.
well, yeah, that's arguable, right?
Yeah.
Right, you're not too sure. Okay. So we're also gonna so those people, they represent your ISP. Now I know that
Okay.
first I want to talk about Google, but this is sort of to lay the sort of foundation for what we're going to be doing. So
Okay.
these people are your ISP. All that to say that whatever you send over the internet, your ISP can see.
Okay.
Okay. And then the specificity also is something that's one of the differences between an actual envelope that you send through the post office and a packet that you send to the internet.
Yeah.
One of the differences is that this is not sealed,
Okay.
right? So literally anyone whose hands this comes in can see the content.
Yeah.
Now, the good news is, in this instance, we're using HTTPS, which means the letter is encrypted. So even if you do open it and look what's in it,
You won't
you're
be
not
able
going
to
to be able to
understand
tell
it.
what's in it, right? I do have also an HTTPS lesson plan to really explain like why it is that HTTPS, like why you can trust HTTPS, and it
Okay.
actually is fascinating. But it's a difficult lesson, but I like giving it. Okay, so essentially, all that to say, your ISP in theory can see what you're sending, so you better encrypt it. But also, they know who is sending to who, right? If you're gonna send a letter to Google, they know.
Okay.
Okay. Now, let's look at Google now, right? So, actually, you know what? So let's have a look at Google now. So I'm just gonna redraw the whole thing again. So from Google's perspective, what happens? Well, so they're connected to the internet. And what happens when they receive a letter from John Smith? So again, they receive a letter. And on that letter, it says, to Google from John Smith.
Well, they open it and they read it, right?
Yeah, they open it, they read it.
And
So they
then
open it, they have the means to actually decrypt it, obviously,
yeah.
right? And so what does the letter say? Well, let's say the letter says, show me used cars. Let's say that's what the letter says, right? It's a Google request and it's asking Google, hey, could you please, like on your search engine, show me some used cars?
Mm-hmm.
Then what does Google do? Naturally.
It shows John Smith some used cars.
Right. So it's going to send a reply to John Smith. And in that reply, there's going to be some pictures of cars, for instance, or some used cars, okay, so it's going to answer the request essentially. So I'm going to draw a terrible car like a 2-year-old would. There you go. This is a car, by the way.
Okay.
This is why I'm not a graphics designer, by the way. Okay. Do you notice what happened here? Is this really the end of the interaction?
No.
Oh, okay. So I really do mean the interaction between John Smith and Google.
Well, hold on. Can you repeat the question, please?
Okay. Is this the end of the interaction between John Smith and Google? Does either John Smith or Google need to send more messages to the other for this to be complete?
No.
Not really, no. From a
No.
technical perspective, yes, but like we don't care about technical. We're sort of talking in like broad spectrum. So yeah, no, this is the end of it. Now, let's say you are Google and you want to
Mhm.
make a buck. You want to make money.
Mhm.
What resource do you have here that would allow you to make some more money?
The internet.
That's not really what I mean. And that's not really an answer either because like, oh, the internet. Okay, but what do you do with it? You know? Now, what information do you like how do you generate money? Well, one way would be that you have information that other people want. Right? You have data that other people would want and you can sell that information. Is there something that in this instance Google knows and that other people might want be interested to know?
That John Smith was looking for used cars.
Exactly. Google is now aware that John Smith, the one and only, once wanted to see used cars. So now Google can make the assumption that John Smith is actually looking for a new car. So
Mhm.
what Google can do is say, okay, I'm going to have logs. So do you know what logs are? And
Yeah.
I don't mean the wooden logs, right?
Yeah.
So can you explain that to us real quick?
It's sort of like a history of what interactions has happened. So like at this time on this day, Google received a message from John Smith. At this time on this day, Google replied to John Smith's message with so said response. Like that could be part of the logs.
Right. So we don't know exactly technically what's in the logs, but essentially what Google could say is, I'm going to keep logs and I'm going to keep it's like a trace, like he said, it's like a history of what has happened. And that can be anything that has happened. And one of the things that has happened is that John Smith actually asked me for used cars.
Yeah.
Why is that interesting to know? Why is that some like how can Google make money off of this?
They can sell it to advertisers for used cars.
Exactly, because then suddenly, well, maybe Toyota would like to know that, or maybe General Motors, or maybe Nissan, or whatever, right? Maybe these. Uh, so I'm not a cars man, so I don't actually know what a uh, car retail like. I don't know car retail chains or anything, but you get the idea, right? Is that
Yeah.
like now there are people, there are companies that would be interested to know that John Smith is looking for a used car. Because now
Yeah.
what can happen is that Toyota, Motors, Nissan, they can go to Google and say, okay, show him ads. Show him my ads. Right? So now whenever
Yeah.
John Smith goes on the web, goes on any page that has like, you know, the Google AdSense thing, where it's like
Yeah.
Google ads, or whenever John Smith browses Google in general, he's
Mhm.
going to get ads from Toyota, General Motors, Nissan, etc. Even if he's not currently looking for a new car, even if right now he didn't ask for a new car, there is a Google is aware that he wants a new car, and Google is selling that data to advertisers and making money off of it.
Yeah.
Okay, what is the sort of the moral problem with that?
Maybe John Smith didn't want his information to get out that he was looking for used cars.
Right. So we're not going to go into physical philosophical debate of what privacy is or means. However, let's assume privacy is something that you value. So privacy as in the fact that John Smith wants a new car is not public, shouldn't be public. It's a private sort of like John Smith when he asked for used Google to show him used cars, what he was expecting was Google to show him used cars and he was expecting that exchange to sort of be private.
Yeah.
Right. That's not what he got. In fact, that exchange ended up being private because it's not public. Because if it was public, then Toyota and Nissan wouldn't have, like, Google wouldn't have had to sell that data to Nissan and General Motors and whatnot. So
Yeah.
it's not public, but like we can't really say it's private either, because like it's private, and yeah, technically, you have terms of service and whatnot, and technically John Smith did agree to have his data sold, literally, but like, it's like it's either you sell your soul or you don't get to use the internet. So that sucks,
It
right?
does.
Okay. And the problem is now, yeah, you have all those advertisers. And the problem is it doesn't stop here, because now what Google can say is, well, I'm going to keep logs of everything John Smith does. So he's looking for used cars also. But let's say Google also owns YouTube. So Google can keep track of every video that John Smith watches, right? Every YouTube video he watches. Maybe Google even keeps tracks of uh, some of his activity on some partner websites. So I don't necessarily have anything in mind, but like let's say you're a small website and you include like some Google AdSense thing, and maybe that Google AdSense like thing that you integrated in your website, that requires you to also enable some form of tracking from Google, right? So
Yeah.
essentially, the tentacles, the reach of that Google has online. I take the example of Google because it's the most ominous, but it's not the only one. The reach that Google has is very, very wide, and now suddenly it's like you live in a small town where all the businesses are owned by the same big company. And no matter where you go and what you do, that big company will see what you're doing.
Oh, wow.
Right. And now imagine it's not one big company, but it's like three big companies. You have, let's say, like, you have Google that's playing that game, you have Amazon, maybe you have Microsoft playing this game, and a few others and whatnot.
Yeah.
And why do they all do that? Well, because whenever they get to sell that data, they can make a profit off of it. And so they're all fighting over every scrape of your personal data. But the whole problem is that this is your personal data, and that there is no more private. It's like there is no more private exchange online.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you protect yourself against that? So more precise. So before we get into that, what are some of the ways that these companies have to track you online? Can you name some of them? We have one example here on our screen here.
Your IP.
Exactly. So the first example is your public IP address. So again, to go on with the analogy, think of your public IP address as like your personal address.
Yeah.
Right? So your personal address is most definitely a personal data, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, anyone can show up at your front door because like the front door is public. But the fact that you live at this address, that is personal. Okay. So your public IP is one way that you can get tracked online. Do you know some other ways?
IP.
There is one that's particularly notorious.
I might not know it. Cookies, yep.
Yeah, cookies, especially trackers.
Yeah.
So cookies are simply like small bits of information that a website will store on your browser on your PC.
Okay.
So you can very well. So two things about that. First of all, a VPN won't help with cookies.
Okay.
And second thing is, some cookies are actually helpful and even necessary. If you, for instance, log in onto a website and you disable cookies, like, how to explain that? You're not going to be able to log, like, let's say you log in, you type your username, password, you click log in, but you have a script that wipes cookies all the time. Then even though you just logged in,
yeah,
the next page you're not going to be logged in anymore. Because the fact that you are logged in is actually stored on your PC, even if it's temporary.
Okay.
So some cookies are good. A lot of them are bad. And so the problem is sort of telling
Knowing.
telling the wheat from the chaff.
Okay.
Okay, if I may, sort of do a quick shameless plug, a really good browser that takes care of that is actually the Brave browser. Referral link below.
Yep.
Okay. So cookies, a VP, like if you want to take care of those trackers and stuff like that, fair enough. You need to like use a good software on your PC, but that doesn't solve the issue of your public IP. Now, onto what you can do to protect, to sort of hide your public IP.
Yeah.
So again, we'll draw our example, and I guess you'll tell us, what can you do to protect your IP address?
A VPN.
A VPN. Okay, what does that mean exactly? Do you know what that means? First of all, what does
Virtualized
VPN
personal
stand?
network.
What does VPN stand for? Even
Virtual personal network.
virtual private network.
Private network. Okay.
Okay. We're not necessarily super interested right now into what that means, because like the significance of each of these words has more to do with the technicalities of VPN than it has to do with the example at hand today.
Okay.
So maybe once we do the IP routing class, we'll look into what that means, but right now we're not interested.
Okay.
Okay. How do I do a VPN? Like, what do I need to add to my drawing here, to my whiteboard? What's missing?
I guess a connection between the computer and the internet.
There's a connection. It's right here. This is it.
Or something between the computer and the internet that isn't a connection, or another connection going to a private server, then going to the internet.
So hold on. Let me see if I understand. So you're suggesting that there is like a something here that our computer is connected to, and then that thing is connected to the internet.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you use a VPN service?
No.
Okay. Do you when you use a VPN service, do
Yeah.
you have like a small appliance in your home that gets delivered to you and you put it in your house and suddenly you have a VPN? Is that how it
No,
works?
it's already on the internet.
Right. So that's why I'm saying this is not really what I want to go for, because this is assuming that this is your house. Right?
I know it.
This side of the internet, this is your house. On this
Yeah.
part here is your house. So you don't it's not here. It wouldn't be between you and the internet.
Would be in the internet.
Exactly. It would be yet another service on the internet. Okay. So what happens when I have a VPN service? What's the communication like now? So let's say we at the end of the day, the difficulty here is that at the end of the day, I still want to have a letter delivered to Google. But I can play around with the addresses.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I still want this letter to somehow be delivered to Google. What do I do? How does it work? What does it do?
Well, the way that I understand it is that the information that you sent, the letter gets sent to a private poster who is
Private poster, what does that
anonymous.
mean?
It gets sent to this place where it is anonymous, and no one, or nearly no one, can find out who sent the letter from this place.
That's pretty good. Okay. What is this place? Is it on our graph or not? Or do I need to draw something
It's
else?
the VPN.
Right. So, okay, what do I draw and where exactly to really get to what you're saying?
I
And
guess.
if you're not certain, it's okay. You can tell me you're not certain. I'd like to know like little bits that you are absolutely certain about.
Well, what I am certain about is that information is sent to VPN, and then like the VPN masks or covers your public IP so that people can't find it, and then it sends the information that was sent to it to the destination.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna stop here because I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. So let's do it. Let's do the opposite, and let's backtrack. We're saying at the end of the day, we want this letter to reach Google. Then
Mm-hmm.
what I'm asking you is, how does it reach Google? So the letter somehow ends here. What was the previous step before the letter got to Google?
It's being sent. It being sent through the internet from the VPN.
So something like this?
Yeah.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
So first I want to focus on this. Okay? And we can have a look as to okay, how did the VPN get that letter, right? So the communication between John Smith and the VPN, we can have a look at that afterwards.
Okay.
But this is like the simple part, but it's the easy part, but it's not that easy. So
Okay.
what about the addresses written on the envelope here? What addresses do we have on that envelope? So I'm gonna make it a bit bigger. So what's the destination?
Google.
Google. Easy enough. Where is it from? Where does it come from?
Anonymous. Or VPN.
That doesn't work. If I just say anonymous, how am I getting a response?
Well then I guess from an address.
Literally, just follow the arrow. Where does it come from?
VPN.
From the VPN, and it really is that simple. So Google actually knows that whoever sent that request is using a VPN.
Oh.
Yeah, they do know. The source
Okay.
IP address is the public IP address of the VPN.
Oh.
Okay. Now, there's still the matter of how did that blue envelope get to the VPN server to begin with. And
Well,
this is what's sort of really, really cool. So I'm actually going to draw it above, on top, over here. Okay. So this is what's like really cool about VPNs. I'm going to first give you the technical explanation, and then I'll show the example with the envelopes so it makes more sense.
Okay.
So from a technical perspective, what a VPN will do is you have your payload. So for instance, your HTTP request, HTTP, HTTPS, maybe it's a Minecraft packet, maybe it's doesn't matter, it can be anything.
Yeah.
Then there is the IP addresses, the IP header. So this is on this one, there would be like John Smith's IP address, for instance, which we're actually trying to hide, right?
Yeah.
But the VPN is actually going to take care of that for us. We don't have to worry about it right now.
Okay.
Okay. And then this is the cool part, is it actually adds another IP header.
Okay.
So the technical term for this is over encapsulation. We are doing we are encapsulating the same packet more than the bare minimum.
Okay.
And whenever you're doing that sort of over encapsulation is when you're doing what's called tunneling. Now, to really understand what it means, again, we'll have to go into the IP routing class. So not for today, but just so you know that this is what a VPN does fundamentally, is just add an extra IP header. That's actually all it does. Okay. Second thing that a VPN will do is say, well, all of this here, I can encrypt it. Right. Because the only thing that I actually care about, so okay, here's what it means. We have the blue letter, which is the one that needs to go to Google at the end of the day. What we're actually going to do is we're going to put it inside a bigger letter, a red letter. So it's like a red letter that contains a blue letter that contains the request for Google.
Okay.
So the really cool thing about this is that it doesn't actually matter what the content of the letter is, right? Like it can be an HTTP request, it can
Yeah.
be a Minecraft packet, it can be like literally anything, and it'll work
Mm-hmm.
just fine with a VPN.
Okay.
Now, nothing prevents Google from saying, hold on, this is a known VPN IP address, I'm going to block it.
Mm.
Google can very well decide that they don't want you using a VPN.
Yeah.
Right? Some services actually do that, most notably video games. So, like for instance, if you ever try to use like a generic commercial VPN and try to log into, for instance, Overwatch,
Yeah.
the game won't let you. In
Okay.
fact, I've tried that once and got my account locked. Now it's no big deal. I could get in unlocked in within 10 minutes. But still, it locks your account. It's like, no, you're not supposed to use a VPN to access our game server.
Jeez.
Yeah. This is why there are gaming VPNs, which are VPN services that bypass that restriction, that filtering that companies would do.
Yeah. Is it worth it? Like having a VPN for things like that?
So it depends on what you need a VPN for.
Oh.
If your goal is to hide the fact that, for instance, that it's your goal is to hide the fact that you are John Smith playing Overwatch, it's completely useless because like you're still logging into the game, like you're still entering your credentials. So like,
Yeah.
okay, you hide your IP address, but you're literally telling the game who you are. So there's no value in hiding your IP.
Okay.
However, VPNs can also, we'll get into more details, but VPNs can actually help you bypass region locking for games. And
Okay.
we'll get into that later. So, okay. So, are you with me so far? Does this all make sense?
Yep.
Great. Do you have any, like, is there anything right now on your mind that you wish you hadn't, you know, and you like, is there a specific question? Maybe you're overstepping towards what we're going to talk about later, but like, do you have any questions right now?
Mm, I do, but it won't be appropriate for now.
Would you rather just type it in Discord?
Sure.
That's a great question. So we'll get into that. So this is sort of the more interesting part about VPN. So the question Trailmus asked is, how do you recognize a trustable VPN? And there's nothing wrong with that question. It's actually a very good and healthy question to ask. And this is getting more into like the politics
Okay.
that are around VPN. But this is a pretty good question, and we'll get into that. So
Okay.
okay, so here's how it happens from a technical perspective. You have your blue letter you want to get to Google.
Yeah.
You're putting it in a red letter. And what happens is first you send that red letter to the VPN. The VPN
Yeah.
opens up the letter, decrypts the content, the blue content, and then sends the blue letter to Google.
Okay.
Okay. And now Google, as long as you're not logged into your Google account, because again, if you're logged into your Google account, this is worthless because you're literally telling Google who you are anyways. But
Well, yeah.
But if you're not logged into your Google account, Google doesn't know who you are. If you
Okay.
don't have like trackers lying around on your like bad trackers lying around on your browser and you're not logged in and stuff like that, so Google doesn't know who you are. So as far as protecting your privacy goes, that's a win. You just won against Google. Google cannot sell, they can't do anything with this, right? If they don't know
Okay.
who you are, they don't know your search history, they don't know who searched this, they won't know. Like they won't make any money off of it. So it's kind of crazy how much work it actually takes in order for you to actually protect your privacy, right? Because like a VPN alone is not enough. You need a good VPN, a good browser. You need and you need to make sure you're not logged into anything. Like it's a mess, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, does the VPN actually know? Like, if Google doesn't know that you are John Smith looking for a new car in this instance, does the VPN provider know?
Yes.
Are you sure about that? Remember that we are
I
using HTTPS here. So they
If it's
what the
HTTPS, then no,
right. So
because they
the
don't have
idea
the
is
means
that
to encrypt it or to decrypt it.
exactly. So all that the VPN knows is that you are John Smith making a request to Google. And then the only thing Google knows is that someone using a VPN is looking for new cars,
Okay.
right? But as long as they're not the same entity, they can't sort of correlate their logs, right?
Right.
But still, you could argue maybe my VPN provider will sell their own logs to Google to make a profit, right? Or maybe
Yeah.
the other way around. Google will sell the logs to the VPN provider, so now the VPN provider knows what you've been looking for, and then they can make a profit by selling that to advertisers. So there's still that issue, and this
Yeah.
is where your question of what's a trustable so this essentially what a VPN server will do is move the trust boundary. It will sort of split the trust because you partially
Mhm.
have to trust Google, but you partially have to trust the VPN. Or rather, you have to
Yeah.
trust that they don't work with each other.
Yeah.
But you're essentially just moving the trust boundary.
Okay.
The good news, though, is that you're also centralizing that that trust boundary. So instead of having to individually trust Amazon and Google and Microsoft and so on, instead of having to individually trust them to not sell your data, all you have to do is use a VPN, and the only company you have to trust with your data is the VPN.
Okay.
So the problem is a lot more manageable, right?
Yeah.
Especially since VPN providers, like the whole selling point of VPN providers is that you can trust them. So if there is a VPN provider that you cannot trust, you'll know about it. Like they have all the economical incentive to actually be trustworthy.
Okay.
Does that mean they're all trustworthy? No, of course not. Uh, so I'm not an expert regarding what VPN providers are trustworthy or not. I think
Mhm.
what you should look into, however, is how aggressive their marketing strategies are, because the more aggressive ones will tend to be the ones that are more interested in making a quick buck, so more likely maybe to sell your data. And also look
Yeah.
at the ones that have had potential security breaches. So for instance, do you know one VPN provider that recently, maybe it was like months ago, but that a commercial VPN provider that had a security breach? Have you heard about that?
Wasn't it Opera VPN?
Which one?
Opera?
How do you spell that?
OPERA.
Oh, Opera.
Yeah.
Opera. I didn't even know Opera had a VPN, to be honest. But typically, from what I know, is Opera developed by a Chinese company?
I am not sure. I'm gonna check that
I
now.
believe they are. Either way, I know that Opera uh has like the Opera browser at the very least has like very fishy stuff going on with it. So I wouldn't trust it to begin with. Right? I wouldn't. Opera is not a name I trust to begin with.
Yeah, neither do I.
Yeah, right. No, I'm actually talking about ExpressVPN.
Oh, I did not know that.
Right. I believe so. Let me double check because I don't want to be arrested for slander, but I'm fairly certain. Let me double check. ExpressVPN leak. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Okay, maybe I was wrong. It wasn't. Hold on. Yeah, I was wrong. So it wasn't ExpressVPN. Was it NordVPN? It was NordVPN. Never mind. It was NordVPN.
Okay.
Yep. So what happened at NordVPN is that some of their user passwords and logs and stuff like that have been stolen. So personal data, but especially user credentials, which is a big deal. So if you're looking to use a VPN, well, I would not recommend a VPN that has shown to have security breaches. Now, you also have to remember that just because a VPN has had a leak does not mean it's a bad VPN. It's a bad omen, but it's not strict in the sense that a VPN, because it's going to be a central hub for personal data, it's going to be heavily targeted. And it's extremely hard to keep something this highly targeted secure. Now, I'm not
Yeah.
making excuses for the fact that they didn't protect the data sufficiently, but I am trying to explain that this is essentially an impossible endeavor. Anyone with enough resources can hack anything, like we explained
Yeah.
last time, right? Um,
Right.
but if I was to trust something, obviously I wouldn't trust a company with it. I would hesitate to trust a company with as far as I'm concerned, they sort of accumulate two bad traits that I don't like in VPNs. First one, very aggressive marketing, going as far as, sponsoring a lot of content creators and whatnot, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just, it shows that obviously a
That's
company
good.
has to make money, but they care about the money first, is what it sort of shows.
Yeah.
Um, which, in all fairness, most VPN providers do work like that as well. But still, there's that, and on the other hand, there's the fact that they've been hacked, and maybe you don't want to trust people who have been hacked with your privacy.
Yeah, I prefer not to.
Right. Personally, one that I have been using but is not perfect, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for everyone, is Proton VPN. The reason I like them is because, as far as I know, I've never seen like any aggressive marketing campaign for what they do. They're also the team that developed Proton Mail, which is an encrypted email service. So personally, I hate Gmail because Google does not even try to hide the fact that they actually read your emails, and they read your emails and you know it because now there's an AI that automatically suggests you replies, right? When you're writing a reply to an email in Gmail, in your Gmail inbox, there
Hmm.
is an AI that's going to automatically suggest, oh, maybe you want to reply that. So
Yeah,
that means the AI has read your email. So that means
yeah,
Google knows what your email contains, right?
yeah.
So maybe you don't want to trust Google with that sort of thing and go with Proton Mail. Proton Mail is also free, by the way, so I heavily recommend it. Like a Proton Mail, I can safely sit behind. This is a good service, especially because it's free. Proton VPN is a little different, and I don't know that I'd necessarily recommend it, especially if what you want to do is peer-to-peer transfer, so BitTorrenting. So the relationship between BitTorrenting and VPN is kind of weird because BitTorrenting being a peer-to-peer service, like, okay, doing VPNs when all that you do is just send a request, so a one-way request, that's fairly easy. It doesn't take it's not very hard. But doing the same thing, doing a VPN service for peer-to-peer transfer, now that's a lot more difficult from a technical standpoint. And so things
Okay.
like torrenting, in my experience, don't work with Proton VPN. Now, Proton VPN, so just to clarify, if you guys are planning to use Proton VPN, they do claim they support peer-to-peer. The reality is that, so I'm not super proficient in BitTorrenting, but from what I understand, they can modify some of the, I believe it is priority is what is the field they touch. So they can change the priority that you set to your for your torrent, essentially making it so that you can't, from what I believe, so I might be wrong on that, I believe they make it so that you can't actually upload anything, which in terms makes it so that no one actually wants to transfer you anything, because from the get-go the Proton VPN is going to say for you, we're not going to upload anything. And so why would anyone transfer to you a file if you're not willing to transfer it back to the community?
Oh yeah.
So in my experience, I have never been able to get any torrenting, legal torrenting, obviously, right? Just vacation pictures and whatnot. So I've never been able to get any torrent working on Proton using the Proton VPN peer-to-peer network. That might be some of my settings, possible. I haven't looked too deeply into it, but from what I've read, it's not feasible with Proton VPN specifically. So this is why I'm saying I like Proton VPN as a service, but if your plan is to do BitTorrenting, like peer-to-peer transfers, maybe you should look into something else.
Okay.
All right. Another really cool thing about VPNs is the encryption part. And I love this part because it's so silly. So the fact that it is encrypted, and we'll sort of get back on this when we talk about, the relationship between VPN and your ISP. We'll get into that later, because the encryption part here actually is more important to your to hide your data from your ISP than anything. But for now, let's just say one thing I find kind of funny about that encryption thing is, and I don't remember what VPN provider was the one advertising their stuff like that, but they on their website they claim to have military grade encryption. Oh, what was that?
Jeez.
Oh, hold on. There we go. I was completely lost. Military grade encryption.
Wow.
Encryption.
That would be very good.
And it's technically true. That's the crazy part. It's technically true, and it's also ridiculously stupid. Hold on. If I want to download, okay, I'm not saying this out loud. Of course I should share my, yeah, exactly. So if you're downloading anything using, BitTorrent and anything legal, obviously, your duty would be to share back, and you wouldn't be able to do that with certain VPN providers. Okay, so back to encryption. So military grade encryption, and that's actually true, and it's also stupid. So what they mean when they say military grade encryption. So as far as encryption standards go, you have legacy standards, which are so I'm talking here about the encryption algorithms. So this is not networking. This is closer to programming, like actual programming.
Okay.
So you have DES, which is a proprietary, which was, I believe, a proprietary algorithm. Proprietary. You have 3DES, which is like an upgrade of DES. And then you have AES. So there is a whole story behind the AES where essentially it was a contest to like get the best open source encryption algorithm, and AES won. Okay. AES is actually open source. And so the crazy thing about AES is that it is, so first of all, let me ask you a question. So if you had to choose, so assuming that both DES and AES are suitable for now, at least, are assuming they're both suitable encryption algorithms, would you rather use an encryption algorithm that relies on the fact that it is secret for its encryption, meaning if it's not secret anymore, then it's not useful? Or would you rely on an encryption algorithm that everyone is aware of, that everyone knows how it works, and despite that, they still cannot crack it? Which one, in your eyes, is more secure? Or is more reliable long term, rather?
AES, I guess.
Yeah. The fact that this is the craziest part. AES, despite so DES is weak because eventually people end up figuring out the algorithm, and once they do, the algorithm is weak. That algorithm relied on the fact that it was secret, but a secret never lasts. Whereas AES is so good that even if you know how it works, you're nowhere near being able to crack it.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I can
And
see
if
why AES is so powerful now.
yeah, so AES is actually the encryption standard, the symmetric encryption algorithm that's used everywhere. There's a reason I
Okay.
specify symmetric, and this is sort of we'll get back into symmetric versus asymmetric encryption when we do the HTTPS class. So if you're interested in that,
Mm-hmm.
but for now, yeah, encryption is the algorithm that's essentially used everywhere. There are multiple implementations of AES, but we're not really interested in that. At least not today.
Okay.
Okay. And so when they see military grade, it's technically true. And the story is that so there it's the Ministry of Defense. So I don't know if it's the American one or maybe the French one or maybe both. But the fact of the matter is, there are some ministries of defenses that were like using their own encryption standard originally, right? Like they developed their own encryption algorithm that were secret and they were using that to communicate with each other, like within the Ministry of Defense. And then they realized that AES is in fact so good that they would be better off using AES.
Yeah.
So everyone uses AES, including the Ministry of Defense, including, military grade professionals.
So that's how reliable it is.
Exactly. It's but this is why I love that branding of military grade encryption, because it's technically true, but at the same time it's a silly thing to say, because I could very well say that it is free encryption. You're thinking, wait, free encryption? Free doesn't seem very secure. Actually, it is. Right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
It's so essentially, I just sort of chuckled at the branding of it, like military grade encryption. It's true, but it's kind of silly. It's like saying that the oxygen I offer you is military grade because it so happens that military people breathe the same air. It's like,
Oh,
okay, I
wow.
guess. Right. So it's just branding, but it's kind of funny.
It is.
Um. Anyway, so how do you feel so far? How's it going? Do you need a break, maybe?
No, I'm good.
Okay, let's keep going. So, what was on our to-do list? No VPN for Google. We've done that. With VPN from Google's perspective, I believe we've done that as well.
Yeah, since it is getting the VPN's public IP address on our own. And
Right.
how
Yeah. Exactly. Um. Let me see. So the cool thing about this, and after that, I think we'll take a short break. The
Okay.
cool thing about this, like the case where you're trying to hide from Google,
Mm-hmm.
this would work even with a non-commercial VPN, with what I call
Oh,
a private VPN or like self-hosted VPN.
yeah.
Because see, the whole thing here relies on the fact that this is not coming from you directly,
Yeah.
right? But if there like it doesn't make a difference if there's one person using the VPN or 10,000. In the case specifically from the point of view of Google.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
whether there's one person or 10,000 using that VPN, Google has no way of knowing your source IP address.
No.
Right. So one thing that you can do is, so this would work with obviously any free VPN, any commercial VPN, but it would also work with a self-hosted VPN. And by self-hosted, I don't mean a VPN that's running next to a computer and using the same public IP address. That actually defeats the purpose. You want to hide your IP address. What you
Well,
can do
yeah.
instead is so if you want to do self-hosted, and this is sort of what we're going to be doing today in the lab.
Yeah.
Do you know what a VPS is?
I have never heard of VPS.
Okay, so can you guess what VNP stand for?
VNP,
Yeah, it's the same as VPN.
Virtual Network
Virtual
Privacy.
private. Okay, virtual private what? Virtual private server. So it's just a very fancy term for a virtual machine on the cloud. On
Okay.
the cloud. So you have services like I think the best, the cheap, a decent, cheap, consumer grade VPS service is Linode.
Okay.
And what you can do, for instance, is set up a Linux VM. So as far as you're concerned, it doesn't matter whether it's a VM or not. It just happens to be a VM. But you can buy a Linux VM, install a VPN server on it, a VPN server app, and then you just set up your own connection to your own VPN.
Okay.
And that would, it's what Google would see is that those requests are sent from Linode,
Yeah.
but they don't know who is using that VPS, right? They aren't Linode. As far as I know, I actually don't know. There's a possibility that maybe Linode would be fishy and trade your info with Google. I don't know that. Okay. So the reason I'm mentioning that is because when I'll be talking about, and this is a bit of a spoiler for later, when I'll be talking about ISPs, self-hosted VPNs don't help.
Okay.
So self-hosted gets a green check mark. It works.
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay.
Well, actually, yeah, one.
Yeah? Go on.
How difficult and how reliable can a self-hosted VPN be? VPN or VPS?
Okay, so it's both. So the VPS is the machine on which you run it.
Okay.
Then the VPN server is the application that you run on that VPS.
Yeah.
And then so you have a VPN server running on a VPS, and then you can run a VPN protocol. So you can do a VPN connection between your personal home and that VPN server running on the VPS.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So we're gonna take a short break now. I need to get some water and whatnot, and we'll be back in how about 10 to 15 minutes?
Okay.
Sounds good. Okay.
Yep.
We are back. So, where did we stop at? So, can you before we continue, can you give us a quick rundown of what we've been over so far?
Well, for now we have been over how like Google sees us with a VPN and then without a VPN.
Right.
So with a VPN, Google has our information, which then it can sell and do whatever it wants with it.
So you mean without a VPN, right?
Yeah, without a VPN, sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
Google has our information, so our public IP and cookies, which then they'll be able to track us.
Okay.
And then if
Does a VPN help against cookies?
uh
What are cookies again?
the little bit of information
Right? And where are those? Where is that little bit of information stored?
on the website that we go onto
No, it's on the web browser. It's on
on the
your
web
web
browser.
browser. So does a VPN help protect your web browser?
Uh, mm,
Again,
yes.
think of it. Remember what a VPN does, right? Does the VPN actually do anything about this HTTPS request?
Yes.
Does it modify the HTTPS request?
No.
Right, so it doesn't actually do anything with it. In fact, it doesn't even matter that it's an HTTPS request. It could be literally anything. Your
Okay.
web browser, your VPN is not even aware that you are using a web browser at all.
Oh, really?
No, it's not.
Oh. Okay.
So, no, okay, so the VPN is essentially it's just a connection. It's just a way of for you the only thing that your computer will do when you're running a VPN hold on. The only thing
Yeah.
that you'll do when you run a VPN is literally just add this header here, this extra IP header, and encrypt this part of your packets that you're sending. That's actually all that you do. That's really
Okay.
all that you do. And the VPN app that you're running on your computer is
Yeah.
just sort of I'm thinking of the right term. A wrapper for that will handle, for instance, authentication.
Okay.
Right. So it's a wrapper that will connect you to the VPN service, right? And to connect you to the VPN service, you have to provide it with credentials.
Yeah.
Right. So the VPN service is not like, it doesn't know what you normally, at least. It doesn't know what you do on your PC. It doesn't know what you're like, the content of what you're sending. All that it
Yeah.
knows is that you're sending it stuff, and it's just serving as like a middleman. And that's
Okay.
all it does. It's like a middleman for a post office. It's kind of like a PO box in a sense.
Okay.
Right? But that's it. Then what you send in that PO box, the PO box is completely oblivious to it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and that's where I was mentioning that if your goal is to protect yourself against trackers, which are cookies,
Yeah.
download the web browser, referral link below, down here, down in the description and whatnot. Okay. Just a bit of a shameless plug here. So yeah, a VPN will be useful. A commercial VPN at least will be useful to protect us, to sort of protect our privacy against websites that we browse to.
Yeah.
What about self-hosted VPNs? Would a self-hosted VPN also help us in this case?
It would,
Yeah, why?
because we would run a virtual. We would have a VPS running a VPN, wouldn't we?
Yeah, so that's what I call, yeah, so that setup is what I call a self-hosted VPN, right? Like that's more of a technical explanation of what a self-hosted VPN is. It's
Yeah.
like you are the one administrating it, but you are also the sole user.
Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, in this case, it would still help protect your privacy, protect your data from Google. Because Google has no way of knowing you are, like, Google has no way of linking you, John Smith, to to the VPS that you're running. Right?
Okay.
It has no way of linking you to that.
No. Bless you.
Excuse me. Okay. Now, let's move on to the perspective of your ISP.
Bless
Oh,
you.
damn. Move on to the perspective of your ISP. Now, this is where it sort of gets interesting because the perspective is actually different. You'd expect it to be sort of the same, but actually there is a big nuance in, like, a VPN will help you in that case, but it will help you in a different way. So, okay. Let's draw our example again. So you have your computer, you have, oh, God, again? Second time now. So you have, move my mouse away. So you have your computer, you have the Google server, as well as the internet, your connections. And one thing that we mentioned is that you can imagine your ISP as being post office workers.
Yeah.
So it's like your letter that you are sending goes in the hands of plenty of people. Right? And you don't know these people, and you don't know that you can trust them. So you send a letter, and that letter goes in the hands of plenty of people. And that letter is not sealed, meaning in theory they can open it. However,
Yeah.
what you can do is encrypt the content. And usually that gets the work done, right? Like you encrypt the content and they don't know, right?
Right.
So that would mean, for instance, using HTTPS if what you're doing is web browsing. That would also mean using SFTP over FTP for file transfer. That would mean using SSH over Telnet. What those protocols are, so the protocols on the left here are just encrypted variants of the protocols on the right.
Okay.
Meaning anyone standing between you and the destination cannot see what's going on.
Okay.
But they still know that there's a connection going on, right? They can still read because obviously they're post office workers. Their goal is to deliver your letter to the destination, meaning they can read what's written on the envelope at the very least. They can read that it's to Google from John Smith. So they know that. And then
Okay.
what's preventing your ISP from doing essentially the same thing Google was doing, right? What's preventing them from building logs, right? Logging your traffic and saying, John Smith has sent a packet to Google at like at 9 p.m. for instance. They can do that, right? They at least it's technically feasible.
Yeah.
Right. So it turns out, depending on the laws in your country and whatnot, they might hold they usually do have logs like these. So I don't know the actual specificities. I've never worked inside an ISP, so I don't know for sure. I guess I could ask some of my colleagues. But the idea is that they will keep some logs. Now, do they keep all the logs? Do they keep sort of suspicious logs? How long do they hold the logs? Usually it's about 1 month, but we will see. Like I guess it depends on the country and whatnot. But essentially, in some way or another, they're going to be keeping logs. Now, they don't care. Like all they know is that you've sent something to Google. They don't know what you've sent to Google. So that doesn't really help them. If they were to like make some room in their like log file, they would remove this, right? They say, we don't actually care about this. Right.
Yeah.
However, let's say you're not just browsing Google, but in fact, what you're doing is you're doing something that's bad and illegal. Now, I don't know what bad and illegal thing people can do, because obviously I would never download a house. So I have no idea. But let's say that you do something illegal, right?
Yeah.
Well, your ISP totally knows, right? Your ISP
Yeah.
will keep logs of that and will say, okay, John Smith has done something bad at 9 p.m. Now, why is your ISP interested in that? Why is it bad that your ISP knows that? Who cares about the bad stuff you do online? Does your ISP care?
No.
Do advertisers care?
Yes.
Do they?
Well, I mean, no.
Not really. What they care about is that you want to buy a new car.
Yeah.
But like pirating stuff, they don't care about that. Right? If anything, it just gives them information that, like, let's say you pirated the latest Disney movie or something, then maybe advertisers would be like, okay, I guess I'll offer him the DVD next time. Like, I'll show him an ad with the DVD. But that's not really what I'm getting to. What's another entity that you might want to protect your privacy from?
The government.
The government, exactly. And this is where this is where we have to be careful. So the interesting thing is that obviously each government is going to be, like, depending on the country where you live, your government is going to be acting differently. And this is the interesting bit is that, as we will see, VPN companies have sort of different standards based on where they are actually located,
Okay.
like what country, and we'll get into that. But essentially, the idea is that the government wants to know because you're doing something illegal. And the government, even like in most countries, the government does have some form of, does have strong ties to the ISPs. One of the reasons being, for an ISP to work, they need like a physical infrastructure, right? That spreads over the entire territory, or some of it at least, right?
Right.
So the ISPs need some form of authorization from the government to begin with.
Okay.
So the government can easily pressure them, can simply say, okay, you give us the logs, or else you can't build. Like there's an agreement. Obviously,
Yeah.
you always have sort of the power of the law, but here it's even stronger than that, in the sense that it's not even just that there's the threat of like police retaliation and getting sued and whatnot. It's actually much more than that. It's like maybe the ISP must disappear if they don't comply.
Okay.
Okay. Well, if they saw you download the latest Disney movie, they'd know you have bad taste because the remakes are ass. Thank you, Zayas. So, okay. The reason I'm pointing this out is because a VPN server will fundamentally be held to a different standard.
Okay.
Because a VPN server, all it needs is like a data center. That's it. It doesn't need like a widespread infrastructure. So
Right.
a given government, has fewer ways to actually pressure a VPN. And a VPN service will be less of a priority to have pressure over than an ISP. Because everyone has an ISP, but not everyone has a VPN. So like if the governments are if a government is going to be pressuring an entity to get logs and sort of do mass surveillance, they'll first look at the ISPs and then maybe look at the VPNs. And so this is why you might be able to get away with using a VPN.
Okay.
Right? Okay, and this is the interesting bit. So how does a VPN protect you against the governmental prying eyes? Well, the principle is the same. You're going to, you have your big envelope that contains your small envelope. And that big envelope you send over to the VPN, and the VPN sends the blue envelope, the small envelope, over to Google or over to the bad service, whatever that may be.
Right.
But remember what we've said, that again, we're going to represent that blue envelope. So let's say it's an HTTPS request or even just HTTP. You then have the IP header. Then you then have another IP header. And I said that all of this was encrypted. So what that means for the government is that all they know here is that you as an individual, you, John Smith, all that they know is that you're using this VPN to do something.
Right.
But they don't know what you're sending because it's encrypted.
Right.
Okay. And by the way, it is military grade encryption. That doesn't mean the military can decrypt it, because they can't. Right. Just making that abundantly clear. Like you cannot just break AES encryption.
Huh.
No, like even the Chinese government struggles with that, and believe me, they're trying their best. Okay. So okay, the government cannot know what you're sending to the VPN, right? But they do know that you're sending something. Okay, and now let's look at, and now the government decides, okay, you know what? We're going to specifically monitor everything that goes in and out of that VPN service. We're not inside the VPN, but we're sort of gatekeepers, like we're watching whatever goes through the link that connects it to the internet. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So we don't know what's going. The government doesn't know. Our hypothetical government doesn't know what's going on inside the VPN, but they know what comes in and out of it. And they know that what comes in is John Smith doing something. And what they know that comes out is that someone is doing something illegal.
Okay.
Now, what happens when you have one user? So, for instance, in the case of a self-hosted VPN, does this really prevent the government from figuring out that you, John Smith, are doing something illegal?
Yeah.
Again, the government will know everything that goes inside and out, in and out of the VPN. And let's say you are the only user. They know John Smith. They know John Smith is connecting to the VPN. They know the VPN is doing something illegal. And then know that there is no other activity. What conclusion can they draw?
That John Smith is doing something illegal.
Right. Precisely because there is no other activity. Right?
Right.
However, what happens if it's not self-hosted but actually commercial? And this is one of the cases where a commercial VPN actually has an advantage over a self-hosted one. What happens if you have not just John Smith but thousands of people using that commercial VPN?
Then
Right?
it's gonna be hard to find out which one is doing something illegal.
It's not just going to be hard, it's going to be impossible. A good analogy I have for this is, let's imagine a place, a weird sort of store, right? So there is this, or a place, or whatever. It's a place you go in and out. It has a door. And whoever, you can enter it, right? Anyone can enter this place. But anyone going out of this place wears a mask. So this is going to be our mask. Okay. So anyone who goes in is identifiable. Like, this is John Smith. But anyone who gets out wears the same mask. So
Okay.
So if my goal is, if there is one person going in and one person going out, can I link them together?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's only one person, it's like in a bathroom, there's one person, in those movies where people they put on a costume when they in the bathroom,
Yeah.
like spies and whatnot. Well, imagine the spy is doing that, and you're the guard supposed to keep an eye on the spy, right? And so you see him enter a bathroom. You can't follow him in the bathroom. But let's say you have the information that no one is in that bathroom before the spy enters it.
Then yeah, I would put 2 and 2 together and say, oh, hey.
Right. At that point, I would know that whoever comes out, even if they're wearing a mask, even if they're wearing a costume, whoever comes out is actually the spy. Well, this is kind of the same idea here, where whoever comes out of this mask store is John Smith, because John Smith is the only person who entered.
Yeah.
However, and then if this person goes on to commit a crime, well, I know that John Smith did it.
Right.
What happens if I have 100 people going in and out at the same time?
Good luck knowing which one is John Smith when he comes out.
Exactly. So that, by the way, that is because we have the assumption of innocence in the West, and thank God for that. But the idea is, out of 100 people that went in the store and then left and then came out with masks, out of that 100 people, only one of them committed a crime. Well, you have two approaches. Either you arrest everyone, or you arrest no one. If you believe in the presumption of innocence, you're going to arrest no one because you have no way of proving who did it. If you don't believe in presumption of innocence, you're going to just arrest everyone and say, well, someone committed a crime and our top priority is to stop crime, even if that means imprisoning innocents. There
Right.
are some countries in which this is the case, by the way, which would mean that if you're in those countries, it would mean if you're using a VPN, you're already, like, what you're doing is illegal if you're using a VPN. Just the
So
fact that you're using a VPN is illegal.
so like Korea and China and
Well,
places like that.
yeah, China specifically. It's, in fact, it's not just, so in China, the way it works is that if you're using a VPN that the Chinese Communist Party cannot decrypt, then your connection is just blocked. So you can't go anywhere. So it's
Okay.
like, if the Chinese CCP cannot see through your mask, then you can't come out of the store with the mask on.
Okay. I mean, yeah.
So this is to illustrate how a commercial VPN, or rather, it's not necessarily commercial, it's just a VPN server with lots of users, can protect us in a way that a self-hosted VPN cannot. So it's specifically in the case of the ISP spying on us, specifically because the ISP has the power to monitor everyone going in and out. Right?
Yeah.
If you know who goes in and out, then you need a lot of people going in and out in order to really hide their identities. In the case of Google, we didn't need that because Google, hopefully, does not have the power to know who goes in and out of the VPN to begin with.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Hopefully. Well, I mean, you're never too sure, right?
Right.
Okay. But then here's the thing, because this is not the end of the story, and this is where we get into sort of a bit more political talk. The VPN service themselves, right? So let's have a look at them specifically. Well, they keep logs too. And the fact is, they kind of have to keep logs. I mean, they don't have to keep logs necessarily, but let's say they have the power to do it. It's in their, they can keep logs, such as John Smith did something illegal.
Yeah.
They could have that information. Now the question becomes, can the government have access to those logs? What do you think the answer is to this question? Can a government access VPN providers' logs?
No. I'm
Zeiss
gonna say
knows.
no.
Zeiss knows. What did Zeiss just send? Are you in my chat right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, what did Zeiss just send?
A bunch of eyes.
How many eyes? How many pairs of eyes, rather?
5 and then
5. And
9.
then 9. And then she's gonna send 14. So the answer to this question is, well, it depends what government you're talking about.
Okay.
And this is really interesting. So you have sort of alliances between, I believe it's only Western countries. You have alliances that are the 5 eyes,
The 9 eyes.
the 9 eyes,
And the 14 eyes.
yes, and the 14 eyes.
Okay.
And so these are 5, then 9, then 14 countries that not only, so that one, they can access the logs of every VPN provider on their territory.
Okay.
And 2, they can share those logs as well as any ISP logging that they have with any other member of the 14 eyes.
Okay.
So what that means essentially in simple terms is there are 14 countries in which if your VPN provider is hosted in one of those 14 countries, it will not protect you against the government looking at what you do. Which means in those 14 countries, if you have if you have a VPN hosted in one of those 14 countries and you do something illegal, you do something that would be illegal in any of those 14 countries, 14 others, well, you could still face legal repercussion.
Okay.
And the countries in question are, so you can easily Google that. Let's see. I guess we'll do that together. So the 14 eyes. 5 eyes, 9 eyes, 14 eyes. So those... So I'm skipping over the details of the alliance itself because we're not really interested. What we want to know is like what to avoid. And the 5 eyes are essentially the Commonwealth. So Australia, Canada, New Zealand, United States, United Kingdom.
Okay.
Then you have Denmark, France, Netherlands, Norway.
Yeah.
And then 14 eyes are the 9 eyes plus Germany, Belgium, Italy, Sweden, Spain.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to say is that if the VPN... So the thing is, it's not like as simple as... So there's a difference between a VPN server where the company is hosted in one of those countries or a VPN server where the server itself is hosted in one of those countries, because that's like two different things. Like, for instance, Proton VPN is a VPN service that is like the headquarters is, the company is from Switzerland, but they have a bunch of servers in a bunch of different countries. So does Swiss law apply or does local law apply for the servers? It's hard to say. Either way, you want to avoid countries that are based in any of those 14 countries.
Okay.
Most notably, like I mentioned, Proton VPN is Swiss. And so the likely, like, even historically, Switzerland is very neutral. And so the likelihood of Switzerland ever joining such an alliance are terribly low. Like, it's not just that they're not part of the 14 Eyes, it's that they'll probably never be part of anything like that.
Right.
So, you know, another advantage of something like Proton VPN. So what that means is when you purchase a VPN, a commercial VPN solution, you want to look at first where the headquarters are, and you want to look at the details of the 14 Eyes to see, like, in that specific country, what matters. Is it the server that I'm connecting to, or is it the headquarters of the company? So you want to look where the headquarters are, and you want to look like what servers do you have at your disposal. So for instance, if you only have one server and it's US based, yeah, the US can absolutely just see what you're doing.
Okay.
But in the case of Proton VPN, for instance, they have several servers hosted in several countries.
And so it can be a bit complicated at that point.
Well, not just complicated, just literally illegal. Like, a government cannot force Proton VPN to give them their logs. And in fact, I'm kind of amazed that Proton VPN has been, like, they have, I believe Proton VPN have even kept their Hong Kong servers, which right now is like a very terrifying thing to do because, as I've said, VPN services, like, it's not just that you can't use a VPN in China, is that a commercial VPNs are illegal in China, except for I believe I know one mobile VPN that's an exception, but that VPN is not even encrypted to begin with. So, like, in theory, Proton VPN is illegal in China, and with Hong Kong falling in the hands of the Chinese Communist Party, you know, it's sort of very hard to tell whether that's legal or not. But the Proton team has really showed that what they care about is they are committed to protecting people's privacy, even, and I might even say, especially in Hong Kong.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's really cool.
It is.
Again, Proton VPN, not actually the best in the sense that if what you want to do is, you know, torrenting, you're going to have a hard time. But
yeah,
they are as trustworthy as it gets.
Okay.
Okay. So if so, okay. Do you have any questions so far after what we've seen here?
No,
No? Okay, cool.
no.
So let's go back to our list here and let's see. No VPN for your ISP. Yeah, we've done that. With VPN for your ISP, we've done that. What about private VPNs? We've kind of gone over this. There are two more cases and actually a third one that I forgot to mention also. So far we've talked about like the use cases for VPNs, but have we mentioned all the use cases for VPNs? Like we've mentioned essentially privacy protection. Can you think
Right.
of other ways that a VPN might be useful?
Uh,
We've briefly touched on it when we talked about games.
uh, ah, the way that I understood it was like it can protect your data. Well, no, not really.
So again, I'm
Like
talking.
it
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
can't it like I saw this when I was watching a Destiny 2 video. Like it was for a VPN ad, and it blocked someone from DDoSing the player.
Mm-hmm.
So like a
So
VPN can block another player from having your information.
the simple reason why. So okay, in Destiny, I believe a lot of communications between players are peer to peer.
They all, which can be
But it
very
will still
annoying.
work through a NAT, which is what VPN does. So I'm again, this is more of an IP routing thing. But in layman's
Okay.
terms, the reason it will protect you against DDoS is because a DDoS attack can only like if this instead of being Google, let's say it's like a mean guy, like a toxic teammate, right? Toxic teammate
Right.
that is that someone who's actively trying to DDoS you. How would they do that? Well, they would look at your IP address that they get from packets that you send them.
Yeah.
But if you're using a VPN, they don't know your IP, they know the VPN's IP address.
And
And then
so they won't
they're
be.
trying to DDoS the VPN, and the VPN has like they inherently have protection against ping DDoS and stuff like that. Anything that toxic teammate is trying to do, the VPN
Right.
is going to be like they're going to have protections against that to begin with. So yeah, in that case, it will help against DDoS. And apparently, Zeiss is not. What's wrong with Destiny players? Goddamn
Yeah. What is
gatekeeper.
wrong with Destiny players?
Goddamn elitist.
What's that
Anyway,
supposed to mean?
so but this is not really what I was talking about. So you're correct. Like yeah, it protects against DDoS, kind of. Like this is a niche application, and fair enough. It's one I didn't think about. So good on you. But I was thinking about more of a more generic reason to use a VPN, more generic use case.
Mm, well, then I don't remember.
So what if, let's say, you are in Europe, and even more specifically, you are in France,
Yeah.
and you have a friend who's in the US.
All right.
Okay, so this is essentially my case, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and you'd like to play together. You'd like to play. Trying to think.
Oh yeah. Got
You'd like
bypassing
to.
region locks.
You would like to. Yeah, exactly. You would like to play Legends of Runeterra.
Okay.
Why do I take this example? Well, because from what I know, Legends of Runeterra is a piece of shit where there is not only is there region lock, but like from what I believe that you can't like there is a hard IP region lock. So that means not only is there like an in-game region lock where you are logged into a server, but
Right.
you can't just like move servers. Like you can't just say, "Oh, okay, next time log me onto the North American servers." No, that doesn't work. It's actually based on your IP address. Like the servers you
Oh.
will be logged in are based on your IP address. right?
Oh.
So let's say that you want to play with your friend, but you can't. Okay, what do you do then? Well, what you can do is do a VPN tunnel to the United States. And then suddenly, when you log on to Legends of Runeterra, well, you're coming out from the US. You're not coming out from France. So Riot Games will think, okay, so he's trying to, he's on the North American region.
Yeah.
So a VPN can help you when you're trying to bypass any kind of regional locking.
Yeah.
And that, by the way, that part has nothing to do with encryption, has nothing to do with privacy, would literally work even if you did not have an encrypted VPN.
Okay.
It's literally just the fact that your packets are coming out of an American IP address instead of coming out of a French IP address. That's
Right.
it. That's actually it. Okay. And so like that's actually a really big use case for VPN. So for instance, a lot of gaming VPNs actually do offer that sort of service where the whole purpose is that is to bypass region locking.
Yeah.
Except if it's bleeding edge and it's actually a soft region locking, but it's actually ping based, and that's actually completely stupid. But that's a whole other matter because bleeding edge developers, I don't know if they know what they're doing. Anyway,
I don't even know if they know what they're doing.
yeah, maybe maybe it's their managers and whatnot. Anyway, so you want to bypass region locking. An example that I like also is South Park. Do you ever watch South Park on like the actual South Park website?
Nope.
Have you? Where do you live? UK?
Fans.
Oh, you're French.
Yep.
Oh, I didn't realize. That's really cool. Okay. Well, if you attempt to go on, so normally, if you're in the US and you go on the South Park website, you can watch all the episodes for free. But if you're in France, you can't do that. In fact, instead, it redirects you to another website where supposedly you have access to the episodes, but actually not all of them. And like, actually, you don't have access because you have to pay for a subscription and whatnot. And so you have to resort to, using Netflix, which is a paid service to watch episodes that are available online for free. Right, you get the problem. Well,
Yeah.
in that instance, what you can do is just use any VPN at all, any VPN, get a connection to the US, go on the South Park website, and you have access. You have access to the free South Park episodes.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, so another use case, and that's a little bit more niche, but since you're French, you might be interested in that. So in France, there's actually a really interesting thing where you know how the Pirate Bay is blocked in France, right?
Yeah.
So what that means if you try to go on the Pirate Bay, it's essentially going to tell you, hey, I don't know what the hell the Pirate Bay is. The way that works is that, so I'm going to touch a little bit on IP routing, but it's fairly simple, fairly straightforward. When you're trying to reach anything, so for instance, google.com, what do you type in the search bar? Do you type google.com or do you type the IP address of the Google server?
I just type in google.com.
Right. Do you know what the IP address of the Google server is?
Hell no.
No, you don't. And you don't have to, because there's actually a system put in place that's called DNS. Domain name, what is it? Domain name system, where the idea is end users do not know the IP address of services. So instead, what you just do, a DNS server is just a record of like google.com. So like that's the domain name.
Yeah.
And it's associated with an IP address. And so essentially when you say, I want to go to google.com, you still need the IP address of Google. But then what happens is that first there is a DNS request that's sent to a DNS server. So this is a DNS server. It's a dedicated server that does that. Your
Okay.
request is first sent to the DNS server, like, how the hell do I reach google.com? And then the DNS server answers. And now you have the IP address of google.com and you can actually send your request.
Okay.
So that's DNS in a nutshell. The thing is, most ISPs, so most internet boxes, at least in France, and I believe pretty much everywhere, essentially they work in a way where your computer will natively use the ISP's dedicated DNS server by default. So what that means is whenever you're looking for a domain name, whether it's google.com or facebook.com or twitch.tv or anything, the first person, the first entity, let's say, that you will ask for information about how to reach that domain name is going to be your ISP.
Okay.
But now let's say you're looking for the Pirate Bay, and the Pirate Bay is outlawed in France. Well, the way the ISP does that, like blocks connections, is they just wipe. Like, let's say normally there is the Pirate Bay. There's a Pirate Bay record with an IP address. What ISPs do in France, at least, is that they just wipe this record.
Okay.
Meaning, if you're looking for the Pirate Bay, you're just not going to get an answer.
Okay.
But if you're using a VPN, well, by default, when you use a VPN, you stop using your default DNS setting, and instead you're using the VPN's DNS setting.
Okay.
Which hopefully is not which normally is not the ISP DNS, but is like another, like, maybe it's 8888, which is the Google DNS, which is yet another service, or maybe it's using Quad 1, or maybe it's using OpenDNS, which is now owned by Cisco, etc.
Yeah.
But essentially, like, you bypass that restriction.
Okay.
So that's another use case, is if you want to access websites or services that normally your ISP would block.
Okay.
I think we've gone over most of the use cases. Do you have questions?
No.
Okay. So let's see. What's left is, yes, what about the enterprise? So I'm not going to go too much into details about regarding enterprise VPNs, because it's not super complex, and it has more to do with the technicality of the VPN, like how it works and whatnot. However, we can still there is a distinction between why you would want to use the difference between a commercial VPN and an enterprise VPN. So in an enterprise, essentially and this is where we go back to, the idea of lockdown and whatnot, is you have an enterprise. So this is the enterprise headquarters, and they have what's called an intranet. So the intranet, have you heard that term before?
Nope.
So internet is the connections between networks. The intranet is connections within a network inside of it. So the intranet is essentially the services that are available only inside the headquarters. So essentially it's like think of it as like the corporate employee network.
Okay.
So for instance, this is where you would have like private servers for I don't know, you'd have like, what could you, like let's say you have a finances server running on it that your employees doing finances want to access regularly, so you'd have that on your intranet. You might have like another like IT IT you could have another IT server, you could have an Active Directory, you could have an SDN controller. Essentially you can have a bunch of services that should normally only be accessible when you're inside the corporate network.
Okay.
But now you have a problem is that coronavirus happened and everyone has to work from home over the internet. So you're in a bit of a pickle right now because, well, you can't just make all of those private resources available to the internet, right? Like that would be just. So Zeiss actually, they probably, I mean, okay, so they could handle some personal files. Like for instance, if the company itself hosts client personal data, then sure. But the employees themselves, I mean, there is also personal information in the sort of, for instance, the Active Directory. So essentially, it's a credential server, the Windows AD, Microsoft AD. It's a credential server, and in that sense, it has personal files, but it goes way beyond just personal files. Like we're talking personal files. We're talking mission critical applications. We're talking like anything finances, anything that maintains the network, your anything that monitors your infrastructure. And like I have only an IT perspective, so that's what I can speak about. But essentially, any inside mission that requires any like IT service at all of that is inside your intranet, and it's actually gigantic. It can get really, really big. It like the amount of services you have available online I don't know that for sure, but can be really puny compared to your intranet.
Okay.
Like really, the proportion can be immense. Like, anyways, it's like think of like Google, and like the Google services available online are actually kind of like the tip of the iceberg of all the servers Google are actually running. And a bunch of those are like internal servers, intranets.
Right.
So, okay, then you have a problem. How do you make all those resources accessible from remote workers? Do you want to take a wild guess?
VPNs.
Exactly.
Or direct connection.
So what you do is you just set up a VPN tunnel between the remote user and the company headquarters. And the idea is simply the user, so they would have an application running on their computer. For instance, what we're going to be using is going to be OpenVPN. And they just provide some credentials. They say, I am John Smith. Here's the password. Maybe here's a certificate. Or maybe I need 2FA, two factors authentication. Something like that, right? Like I'm essentially authenticating that I am, in fact, John Smith. And then somewhere on this side, there is a VPN server that hears all of that. And that says, okay, so I know for a fact you are John Smith. You've authenticated yourself. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you access to the intranet, to the inside of the network.
Okay.
As if you were there physically.
Right.
But obviously I'm still doing it over the internet.
Yeah.
But remember that all of this is encrypted as well. So this is not so much for privacy protection. It's just to give access to remote workers without having to like rework your entire infrastructure.
Okay.
And what the lab we're going to be doing today actually resembles that example quite a lot. So what we're going to be doing. So first of all, do you have questions before we move on regarding maybe the enterprise VPN?
No.
No, it's fairly straightforward. It's just instead of having a VPN connection to a public server that then like hides your identity online, you're doing the same thing, except the purpose now is to authenticate that you are John Smith and then give you access to the inside of the enterprise network.
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's have a look at what we're going to be doing for the lab. So what we're going to do is we're going to sort of emulate an enterprise environment, or like a personal a home lab environment. So think, for instance, you want to run a Raspberry Pi with a web server or something, or a NAS, or like you want to run a bit of a server, right? You want to run something in your house. Like we sort of
Right.
touched on that briefly last time. So you're going to have a computer running 24/7. Actually, it's a server, so let's draw a server. Then you're going to have a firewall. We're going to have a firewall here. And then we're going to have, so this will emulate the internet. Let's say this link here. And then we're going to have our remote client.
Okay.
And we're going to do two things. The first example will be a direct connection to the server that's
Right.
sitting behind the firewall. That'll be the first lab. And in the second lab, we will actually do a tunnel towards the firewall itself.
Okay.
So usually in enterprise, you'll actually do the second one, where you will have sort of a central hub, usually a firewall or a router or something like that. But you will sort of have a central hub where people come in, or like something that's going to be facing the internet, right? Something that's going to have what we call a WAN connection. WAN essentially means outside. It's not quite that, but that's enough for us.
Okay.
So in an enterprise, usually you'd have this second example. But in our case, like the first one we will do, first of all, is a little bit easier to put into place. And second of all, is actually kind of interesting if what you plan to do is, for instance, if what you want to do is like just run one Raspberry Pi, for instance. Like you don't have a whole infrastructure with like a firewall and several servers and whatnot. You just have one dumb Raspberry Pi running and doing its own thing. And so you
Right.
don't you just need a VPN to the Raspberry Pi, and that's it.
Yeah.
Right. So still a use case for that. Oh, okay. Have you ever used a firewall by any chance?
Just the base firewall on Windows.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. I see. Right. Do you know what a port is?
In which sense?
So in the sense, have you heard of like TCP or UDP ports?
Nope.
Sometimes referred to as application ports.
Nope.
Okay. So we're gonna be doing a tiny bit of firewalling today. If you don't necessarily understand what we're gonna be doing, it's fine. I'll try to explain it very simply. It's not that like it's the for the intents of our example here, we don't need to go too much into details. But like again, it's the kind of thing, if we really want to understand it, we have to go in that IP routing class. Which
Okay.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we can just get started now. We're gonna be creating obviously 3 virtual machines. So one of them is gonna be Ubuntu, which is why I asked you to download the Ubuntu image earlier. It's actually going to be Ubuntu 18.04, not the latest version, because the latest version doesn't work. Open ports for Minecraft server. Actually, yes. That's what we're going to do. We're going to be opening some ports. So we're going to be running Ubuntu. We're going to be running pfSense for the firewall. And we're going to be running a simple Windows machine as our client.
Okay.
And so we're going to be doing all of that together. I actually, I haven't prepared anything on purpose. I mean, I had prepared myself, but like deleted all the labs and whatnot so that we could do that together. So let's start by creating the VMs. So we're gonna start with the Ubuntu machine. So let's see. I think this is the one. Yeah, I think. Yeah, okay. So this is the one. I have the Ubuntu image. The cool thing about Ubuntu is that, so I think I mentioned briefly, but like Ubuntu is not open source. Like it's Linux, but it's not open source. It's owned by Amazon.
Yeah.
Okay. So we just, fill out those fields. Bullshit password. So Ubuntu VPN server or VPN lab. 100 gigs and customize hardware. And so this is where it gets a little bit difficult. So I can afford to go a little bit beyond. 4 gigs is plenty enough. I can give it. So I have a really good computer. I can afford to like give it quite a bit of performance just to try to speed up the installation process a little bit. You have a 6-core CPU, right? So I think give it how many? Give it 4 cores. I think should be enough.
Okay.
Actually, no. Give it 2 cores. Probably better.
And then stick with 4 gigabytes of memory?
Yes, 4 gigs is plenty enough.
Okay.
And now we're gonna still change something with the network adapter. So the difficulty here. So I won't go into details as to what all of these mean, but what I will do is do LAN segment here, and so actually I'm gonna delete those. So here's what LAN segments mean. LAN segments actually represents the different physical connections here, like these, actually the virtual connections. Okay. So we have 2 LAN segments, and we need to give them a name. So this one I'm going to call inside, and that one I'm going to call outside. And the idea is that the Ubuntu server needs 1 connection on the inside segment.
Right.
So if I go back here, I'm going to create a new segment, call it inside. And that's actually it. While I'm at it, I'm going to already add the outside segment. And I want it to be connected to the inside segment. So I do this. And now this connection on the Ubuntu machine is connected to the inside segment. And now see it's updated and it's connected to the... So the difficulty with doing this is that this machine does not have a connection to the actual internet. So won't be able to update and install stuff, but we will get there once we actually create the pfSense firewall.
Okay.
Like the pfSense firewall will be the one, like if we take back our example here, the pfSense firewall will have this is a simulated internet.
Yeah.
Simulated. But the actual internet will be on the firewall here.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, we're good. Finish. And then, installing Ubuntu on VMware is sort of streamlined. It's a simplified process because Ubuntu is proprietary. It's also extremely popular, and so VMware has a contract with Amazon to sort of simplify the installation of Ubuntu on their products. Okay. Which is why it's going to be easier here to install Ubuntu than it was to install than it was to install Pop! OS. This is terribly loud. Jesus.
Jeez, yeah, that was loud.
Yeah, just like whenever you install a new game. Okay. And so if for those of you at home that are watching this and you remember the virtualization class and lab, you remember we tried installing Pop! OS, which is the different Linux operating system, and you will remember. Hold on, I'm gonna open an Epic pen because I like to draw even on something like this, even without a whiteboard. Okay, so when we were running, so I'm explaining this while I'm when it's installing and stuff. While we were installing Pop! OS, we actually had to like manually tell it, okay, we want to install. This is the disk where we want to install. We want to do all of these things and whatnot. And when we install Ubuntu over here, there we go, Ubuntu. When we want to install Ubuntu, all of that is streamlined for us. It just asked us, okay, like before even running the VM at all, it just asked us, hey, what's going to be your username? What's going to be your password? And that's it. And then it immediately starts installing it. So yeah, there's that. Regarding Ubuntu, is it a, so again, while this is installing it, would I recommend Ubuntu? Personally, I wouldn't. I don't think it's a bad distribution. Um, I just can't in my right in my right mind recommend a distribution that I know for a fact is a Linux distribution that I know for a fact is proprietary and owned by Amazon. Because so one of the biggest motivations why you even want to use Linux is to actually to have more control over your machine. So the idea is that you don't want to use proprietary software, and more than anything, you want to. A lot of Linux users sort of want to protect their privacy, right? But using an operating system that's literally developed by Amazon, you're not going to be like it's arguably worse. Well, it's not any better, at least, than just using regular Windows. Also, for those of you watching at home, if you are wondering, like, oh, I'd love to do this lab, but I literally don't have the compute power, you can always just rent a VPS. So if your physical computer is not capable of handling all of this, it does not have enough CPU cores and whatnot. What you can do instead is say, okay, I'm going to like rent a VPS. You can do it on Linode. So the really cool thing about Linode, and I'm not sponsored by the way, it's just a decent product. The cool thing about Linode is that you only pay for what you use. So for instance, if you only run the VM for like 1 hour, you'll be paying for 1 hour of usage. And what you can do is say, okay, I'm gonna rent, let's say, a I don't know, a 16 cores machine to run my virtual machine, my like whole VPN lab with all my virtual machines on and whatnot, right? But since I'm only going to be running it for 2 hours, it's not actually going to be costing all that much, and I can do the entire lab. So okay, it's done installing. How's the installation going for you, by the way?
It is at the command console.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you should be close to done.
Yep.
Okay.
Signing in now.
Fantastic. So what we're going to do now, we need to give this machine internet access. And we said that to do that, we need to create a second VM that's going to be running the pfSense firewall.
Right.
So let's open another window, create another virtual machine. And this time look for the pfSense image. God damn it, which one is it? This one. Okay, and this is pfSense. Firewall. VPN lab. Customized hardware. Okay, so are you watching my screen right now?
Yep. What did you
So,
use as the data ISO?
excuse me, what?
What did you do for the psense? For the
The ISO, you mean?
yeah,
Well, haven't you downloaded the ISO already? I thought you did.
I thought I did too. Oh, there it is. It just wasn't showing up.
Oh, okay. So we're gonna give it a lot more RAM. I believe pfSense recommends using at least 2 gigs of RAM, but you have a lot of RAM, right? You have like 20 gigs, I believe.
Yep.
Okay, so we can go up to 4, no problem. And that should be plenty enough for what we want to do. Processors, I'm gonna give it 2 cores. You can get away with 1 or 2, like which they both work.
Okay.
And so, okay, are you at this screen, at the customization screen?
Not yet because it doesn't want me to use the pfSense. Like it isn't showing up in my download folder when I'm using the create new VM. It isn't showing up when I browse for it. I
So
have
what did you
Ubuntu.
download exactly? Are you sure you downloaded the ISO file?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay,
but at the end it's a .gz.
right, so it's compressed. So do you have a 7-zip?
Yep.
Okay, well just open it with 7-zip and extract it. GZ is contraction contraction. What? Okay, it's contracted form of gunzip. So like the proper term is gunzip.
Okay.
And in fact, the Linux command line to like unzip a GZ file is gunzip. It's the gunzip command.
Okay. pfSense firewall VPN customized hardware.
Okay.
2 gigabytes.
For 2 or 4. 4 if you have enough RAM, so 4 will work. Like
Okay.
I would only do 2 if you're like kind of tight on RAM, but you're completely fine. So I want to stop here just to sort of do it together, the network adapters part. So
No.
how many network adapters? That means how many like connections does the pfSense machine need? If we have another look back at our drawing here, how many connections does the firewall need?
Only needs one connection to the Ubuntu machine.
Yes, but I mean
Uh,
total. How many
3.
interfaces does it need?
3.
Yes. So that means that in our VM, we need to have 3 network adapters.
Okay.
So the first one we will leave at NAT because this is essentially our like actual internet connection.
Right.
Then we're going to add another network adapter. And that one, we want it to be a LAN segment. And it will be our inside segment.
Okay.
And then the final one will be another network adapter. And this time, the outside segment. So far,
Right,
so good.
so that means one inside,
So
one
there's
out.
one inside, there's one outside.
Yeah.
And the last one is sort of just there so that the machines have virtual access to the internet.
Okay.
There would have been other ways for me to do it. Yeah. No, this is fine. Okay. And then we can close and actually just run it. And so now we have our second VM running and starting to install pfSense. So we can just leave it at its thing. Oh, before you touch anything, I heavily advise that you do not even click, like you be very careful when you click on the pfSense window.
Why?
I've had terrible experiences with pfSense on VMware where I would click on the window and actually just not be able to focus out of it. Even when I do, like, normally to focus out of a window where you don't have a cursor, you just do Control Alt. But like I'm doing it right now and it's not actually working.
Okay.
So, okay, we have to install it and do a few configs. So let's see. Key map is French. Automatic is good enough for me. And then let's see, can I focus out? No. So yeah, this is kind of the issue here. Is I cannot actually focus out, so I have to like hop in my task manager and hopefully it doesn't break everything, and still kind of does. Oh, there we go. Okay, now that it's rebooted, now that the VM actually rebooted, I was able to focus out of it. So yeah, it's got a few, a few rough edges. Oh wait, never mind. I am fucking stupid. Ah, okay, that makes sense. No. I see it now. I am absolutely, beyond the shadow of a doubt, just dumb. Well, that's.
Care to explain?
No, thanks. I just can't count. That's about it. That's all there is to it.
Okay, now
I think.
yeah.
Whatever. Just don't question it.
Okay.
But at least I've figured it out. You know.
Yeah.
Okay. So the LAN will be EM0. And EM. Yes. Okay, and this should work now. So, do you have a working setup on your end?
What qualifies as working?
So, if from your... So, you can do a few tests. The ultimate test, and I suggest you can try that right away, is on the Ubuntu machine. Try to do ping 8888, 8.8.8.8.8. If you can do that, if this succeeds, you have a working setup. And if it says destination host unreachable, then you don't have a working setup.
Right now it's just pinging it.
And do you get replies from it?
Yeah, 64 bytes from E.E.D.8.
Then it's working. Then you're just fine. You're doing great. It's just on my end. I'm being a poophead that can't count.
Yeah, I can see how that can be troublesome.
And then, oh, last question. Did you, okay, we haven't done this. So we still have one more interface to set up, which is the optional interface, the one for the outside network.
Okay.
Okay. So we still haven't done that. So it's going to be very similar to what we've done with the inside network.
Okay.
So it's this time we want to do 10.0.1.1. Okay. So you follow what I'm typing?
Yep.
Okay. 24. Type nothing, just press enter. Just press enter. Yes. 10.0.1.10. 10.0.1.100. No. So we should be good now. And let's see if this works. Yes, we have access to the internet. So here's what we're going to do now. So the great news now is our Ubuntu machine has access to the internet. We're
Yeah.
going to do two things. The first thing we're going to do, and we're going to have Ubuntu in full screen. What do you mean? It worked earlier today. I am just absolutely furious. It worked earlier today. Literally full screening. Okay, whatever. We're going to open up Firefox on the machine. And what we're going to do is we're going to access the admin. So this page here, this console to administrate pfSense, it's kind of shit, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. We're going to have something much better. So you
Okay.
go on the Ubuntu machine and you type HTTPS. Oh, hold on. Need to add the French keyboard, and I suppose you do too.
Now I've
So,
gotten used to QWERTY, so I just got myself a QWERTY
oh yeah,
keyboard.
I can't get used to QWERTYs. I'm actually trying to learn the Dvorak keyboard layout. Don't know if you're.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite something. I'm not sure it's a
Sounds
good
like
idea.
something.
I mean, it is funny, but I'm not sure it's a good idea. Anyways, I'm still used to the French one. Okay. So HTTPS. And we're going to go on 10.0.0.1. Then we get this warning. What you do is you scroll down, you go on advanced, scroll down, and do accept risk and continue. Okay?
Okay.
So I will explain what that specific warning means in the HTTPS class. It's not
Okay.
actually a like in our situation. It's not actually a security breach. It's not a security breach at all. We don't have to worry about a thing. Okay.
Well, for me it said unable to connect.
Oh, did it?
Yeah. Yeah, it says that there's a problem loading the page.
That is weird. Hold on.
And I'm looking at like odd things, and the only difference is the WAN.
What's the difference in the WAN exactly?
Well, instead of for you it being 192.160.57.130/24, mine it's 192.168.44.130/24.
That's fine.
Okay,
That's not the issue here.
but otherwise it's completely the same.
That is very strange. So, essentially, what we're trying to do here, if we pull out the, am I stuck somewhere
It's
again?
because it is. Wait, now it's saying from the pinging, destination host unreachable.
Ah, that makes more sense. So, I think, have you changed anything, by the way? Just silly question, I know, but I need to fucking.
No, I mean
Okay.
I followed what I did, what you did.
Okay, so first of all, I got stuck, so I have to reboot the VM. Okay.
Big lip.
So essentially, what we're doing here, we have a look at the whiteboard. What we're doing is pfSense is running a web server internally, and that web server is accessible from this side here.
Okay.
So what we're doing is the Ubuntu server is trying to access the web server that's running on the pfSense. What
Okay.
might be happening on your side is that you have configured things, like you have a configuration that's slightly different, where so you know how like pfSense has like a WAN, a LAN, and an optional.
Yeah.
On my side, this is LAN and this is optional. On your side, the inside might be optional and the outside might be LAN.
Oh.
And that might be why maybe you don't have access to the web interface on the optional one. So what I suggest you do is you make sure that, so you have to do option number 1, right? If you remember, assign interfaces.
Yep.
And you make sure that, so the one interface, your one interface is good, right? It's the one it's the one
Yeah.
it's the one that was working.
Yeah.
However, your LAN interface, you have to make sure that that's the inside.
Well, what I wrote down was that they had the same MAC address for
Mm-hmm.
the inside, and then the EM1. Then I set the EM1 as the inside.
Yeah, and did you set EM1 as LAN or as
Uh,
optional? Well, either way, I want you to set EM1 as LAN, okay?
yeah, EM1 is LAN. Optional is EM2, which is outside.
Right. So do that, and normally you should have access to this page.
Okay. One, no. WAN interface. No. LAN. EM1 and 2. Okay, WAN. EM0, which is the NAT. Inside EM1, which
Wait,
is
wait,
LAN.
is EM0 the NAT now? I thought
It's
EM0.
always been
Oh
the
wait,
NAT.
0. Okay, no, never mind. Yeah, EM1 is your inside.
EM2 is outside, which is optional now.
Right. Okay, and see if it works now. See if you have access to this page by typing 10001.
HTTPS. No problem loading page.
Okay, try doing the option where you restart web configurator. So option number 11. Maybe that'll do it. It's really weird because you should have access to it even through the optional interface.
Okay, so now that that is restarted, 10.0.0.1
Oh, did you do HTTP or HTTPS?
HTTPS.
Okay, yeah. Oh, maybe you reverted. Okay, if that doesn't work, try just HTTP.
No problem loading page for both of them.
That's strange. I don't know what to tell you. Do you have access to the internet right now? Does the ping work on your Ubuntu VM?
I'm gonna try ping again. And then it was just 8.8.8.8.
Yes.
Destination host unreachable.
Huh, I see. Okay. Um, try doing option number 2, set interfaces IP addresses again. Oh yeah, because you reset your interfaces. You changed your interfaces around, so it probably reset the IP addresses, and so you have no connectivity at all, and so you don't. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Okay.
I'm not gonna do that the whole thing with you again, but I'm gonna type in what you need to type. It's 10.0.0.1. Okay, just let me know what it's asking for.
Okay, I did option number 2, available interfaces. With the number of the interface that I wish to configure, WAN 1, LAN 2,
Okay,
optional
yeah, right.
2.
So the LAN interface.
So 2.
Yeah.
IPv4 address, the new IP LAN,
So
the new LAN
10.0.0.1,
IPv4, 10.0.0.1.
and then I
Yep,
believe you have to type 24.
yep.
Then what is it asking for?
For
Gateway?
yep.
Just skip
For
that.
LAN,
Press
press
enter.
enter for none.
Yeah, just
Enter
press
the new
enter.
LAN IPv6.
Enter. Just enter.
DHCP server on LAN.
Yes.
Enter the start address of the IPv4 client address range.
10.0.0.10.
Okay, IPv4 client address range.
10.0.0.100.
You want to revert to HTTP as the web
No.
configurator protocol.
No.
Changes are being saved. Press
Okay.
enter to continue.
Okay, and then you continue, and then try again. Try the ping first, and then try the web page.
Destination host unreachable.
Really? Okay. Can you share your screen with me?
Yeah. Hold on. And then the terminal is right there.
I'm not seeing anything.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not. Oh, there we go. I see your thing. Okay, it's just Discord being down. Okay, I see you. I see you. Okay, so yeah, yeah. I mean, this seems fine. Okay. Press Control C. No, not here. The other one on Ubuntu to stop the
Oh,
pings.
okay.
Uh,
Should I
type
do the IP
IP.
add?
Yeah, IP add. Okay, I see. Try pinging the. Wait. What? Okay, try typing just ping 10.0.0.1.
10.0.0.1. Host unreachable.
What? Wait, what? How does that make sense?
I don't know, I'm the student.
Um. Oh yeah, this is okay. Oh no, I know. Okay, go in your wired settings on Ubuntu. So the problem is right now you're holding onto a bad IP address essentially. So
Oh,
turn yeah, and you turn it off and on again. So here it's on. Just turn it off and back on, and that should actually solve it. Just give it a moment. Yeah, there you go. Now it should work. It should be now. You should be able to ping 8888. There you go. Okay, so essentially you were holding onto a bad IP address.
okay.
Yeah.
And so now if I do the HTTPS, it should work.
Right. If it doesn't work, I'm actually just completely lost.
If I put both T's, that would be best.
Yes. Beautiful.
Advanced. Accepted this can continue.
Yes.
Oh, it's so glorious.
So the username is admin and the password is pfsense, all lowercase. And now you should have essentially the same screen as I do, where it's gonna ask you for initial setup and things and stuff.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Okay. So now we're just gonna do basic setup. Now here's some stuff we don't care about. Next, host name, domain, we don't care, we don't care. We don't care. This is all fine. We've already configured it. We don't care, just next. We've already configured this, just next. Admin password, we can change it. I don't really care again because this is just a lab, a quick lab, so it doesn't matter. And then it's going to restart it again. But now, okay, so this web interface is actually now, from now, and while we're at it, we might as well check for updates. We're actually going to update our pfSense router. So see, it's looking for some updates. I believe there should be updates, right? I believe we've moved on to 2.5, version 2.5, since maybe you have the newest one, so maybe you are up to date, but I'm not. And so this web page here is actually the main way that we're going to be interacting with the firewall from now on.
Okay.
Including, when we're going to be configuring the VPN tunnel on the firewall, that's what we're going to be using.
Okay.
It's actually, so this web thing is actually the main way that a lot of network appliances actually offer you a graphic interface. So like, for instance, wireless controllers or any router, any firewall from any vendor, like most of them, if not all of them, actually have like a web interface.
Okay.
I need to test ping, man, because this is weird. Yeah, no, first should be working. Oh, whatever. Oh no, don't tell me. I'm locked out again. What a nightmare.
At this point, it's just become a joke.
Yeah, kind of, right? Like, oh god, I should just minimize it and never touch it again.
You really should.
Yeah. Get me out of here. Jesus. Never want to see your face again. Okay. And obviously it's not working right now because I'm rebooting the firewall, so obviously it's like not going to be able to connect to the web interface.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm going to keep trying until it works. Okay, there we go. We're back. Okay. There we go. Now it's detecting an update. Please work this time. There we go. So you're just better off, like, especially things like firewalls, you really want to keep up to date.
Okay.
Like, we've seen plenty of cases where, like, even recently, it wasn't a firewall; it was an enterprise VPN software.
Yeah.
That, like, I think like a few months ago there was a vulnerability that was found, and the thing was patched, but then hundreds of companies just didn't push the update, and like there was a massive hack, like a mass hack of plenty of like hundreds of professional user credentials being stolen.
Wow.
Yeah, because people just didn't patch their software. So you can't really blame the company. It's just dumb company. Like the VPN provider did their job. There was a vulnerability found. It was patched, and people who didn't push the patch, they got fucked. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what you'd expect.
Yeah.
Okay, so while this is running, we can create our third VM, which is going to be a Windows VM. Now, what you can do is use the. I believe you already have a Windows VM running, right?
Yeah.
So you can buy yourself some time and like not have to bother with it. I also have a like you. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I also have a Windows VM that's sitting here. So we're gonna
Yeah.
do this together. We're the only thing that we really need to do. First of all, I'm gonna reduce this. The only thing we really need to do, 4 gigs of RAM is enough, is change the network adapter and change the LAN segment to outside. Does that make sense to you?
Yep.
Right. So that's the only thing we really need to do. And then just run it.
I don't have enough screen space for this.
Do you only have one monitor?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so when you start virtualizing a lot of stuff, yeah, it can get really tight.
Cluttery.
Yeah. I have 3 monitors and I feel tight.
Jeez.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm streaming. I kind of need that much space. It's not
Fair.
it's not it's
True.
not a luxury at all.
Yeah. It's more like an obligation than a luxury.
Yeah. I mean, at the very least you need 2. Let's see. I need to change the display settings for this VM. It's way too big.
I thought I was greeted with an only black screen. Turned out that the VM was a lot lower than I thought.
What do you mean?
Like, it wasn't centered to where the window was. There was probably like a corner of it
Oh, oh, I see.
and just a completely black space around it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that black space. Okay, and so you were only seeing the black space essentially.
Yeah, and I was starting to get a bit scared.
We're actually just gonna leave it at this. Okay. So here's our Windows VM. And what we're gonna be installing on Windows, and I guess we can start. So first of all, I guess I'm gonna check for updates because I might as well. Okay. So network 3, yes, we want to be discoverable because this is our outside network. So the first thing we're actually gonna do is do a few config. So are you on my screen? Are you on the pfSense configuration uh, page?
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to be doing a few firewall configurations. As
Okay.
if so again, because the idea was, if you remember it on our whiteboard, the idea was here in the middle to simulate the
Yeah.
internet on our outside network, to simulate the internet. So if I was simulating the internet, I'd want some filtering here. I'd want to filter some traffic, right?
Yeah.
So we're gonna actually do that. We're gonna be filtering some traffic, and don't worry, it's really straightforward. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go in firewall, and then rules, and then you see each interface has rules. Now on the LAN interface, the rules are like permit everything, everything goes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Right now, what I'm going to do is temporarily, I'm going to set optional 1. So this is where our Windows machine is connected, right?
Right.
I'm gonna create a rule by clicking add, and I'm gonna leave pass. I'm gonna leave the interface optional 1. I'm gonna leave all of this. Here I'm gonna go from TCP. I'm gonna select any. Here I'm gonna leave any. I'm gonna leave any and all of this, and I just click save. So I just selected any protocol, right? That's the only change I actually made. And so what this does is that now, after I, apply the rule, my Windows machine has access to everything. So if I was to, for instance, on the Windows VM, run cmd with the command prompt, and if I was to run a ping towards the internet,
How
I
did you
have
get
access to the
internet on
internet.
your Windows machine?
Excuse me, what?
How did you get internet on your Windows machine? Because for me, it isn't showing up.
Okay, so first of all, did you modify your Windows VM? Did you
Uh,
change the network adapter?
yeah, to outside.
Okay. And then did you apply the rule to the firewall?
Oh no, not yet.
Right. That so it makes sense because when you don't have a rule, the implicit rule is to deny everything,
Okay.
right? So if you have no rules, it means permit nothing, not even the pings. And so we're gonna be so this rule where we permit everything is temporary because
Okay.
that does not simulate what we would have in a in an environment where we're like this is not we if this was actually facing the internet, we would not permit everything. In fact, a good example is what the WAN interface actually has. And the WAN interface is sort of like actually is the actual public interface, like is the actual interface that's facing the internet. And you see it literally permits nothing. Nothing can
Right.
enter, literally. And that's what you want, right? By default, you want nothing to go through unless you has very specific reasons to let something through. And we will see that actually we do have some reasons to let things through. So, okay, what I'm going to do on Windows now is real quick, I'm going to download the OpenVPN client. So let's see if I can find the right one. Okay, Windows. Okay, OpenVPN Connect. I think that's the one.
Uh, do I need to restart the machine after changing the settings in the rules in the
No,
firewall?
you don't need to restart the firewall when you change the firewall rules.
No, but the Windows machine.
No, that shouldn't like changing the rules on the firewall should not affect the Windows machine. I mean,
Because
you don't have to restart it. Normally,
because
you should be able to ping now.
oh yeah, I have to do the ping command.
So does the ping work?
Request timed out.
So it doesn't. Okay, important question. So did you added the rule on like the on the optional side, right?
Yeah.
Did you make sure that the rule okay, hold on. When you created the rule, did you make sure that protocol under the protocol there you selected any?
Oh no, I left it on TCP.
Right, that's why. Okay, so the short
Okay.
story is ping is not TCP, and you're only allowing TCP.
Okay. Ping 8.8.8.8. Request timed out still.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
did you apply the changes to the firewall?
Nah. Geez, you need to apply a lot of changes.
Yeah, I mean it kind of makes sense. Imagine you starting to
Yeah.
make some changes, you misclick something, and suddenly like it breaks everything.
Yeah. Now it's good.
this machine is slow.
I find it funny how it says at the bottom right of the Windows VM, it says it isn't connected to internet, and yet I can still Google things.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
weird.
Like for me, it says there's no internet, but while I'm in Internet Explorer Edge, I can just watch a YouTube video while not being connected for no reason.
That's really weird, yeah. Did I not install OpenVPN? Oh, no, I did. Okay, there we go. There we go. Oh, fuck, that's wrong. That's the wrong one. That's the wrong one. Which one was it? Was it GUI? Oh, this VM is slow as fuck. Okay, yeah, I think I'm gonna reboot that VM and add more cores because it's unfathomably slow. Like 4 processors is not enough, apparently. So yeah, as you can see, setting up a lab and whatnot can be pretty tedious because we haven't even touched VPNs yet.
Yeah.
So for the next time, I'll definitely be preparing the VMs in advance. I mean, that's what I wanted to do originally, and then I thought, you know what, could be interesting to not do that and to do it live. Well, I mean, this sure is interesting. Maybe not in the best of ways, though.
But maybe not in the best of ways, but in the funniest of ways.
I'm not sure this is funny. I mean, we've wasted like 40 minutes on this so far, maybe more.
Probably.
Yeah, this is taking a while. Oh, really? Why is it? Oh, Jesus. Okay. And it should be running a bit better. What is this? Okay, do I have another browser? Have I installed Firefox? No. Jesus, I don't know what the hell's going on.
There should be Internet Explorer pre-installed.
Yeah, but like, no, but they're like I'm using Edge, but I don't know if it's Edge that's shitting the bed. Yeah, GUI, I guess. I don't think that's the one, but we'll see, I guess. Okay. Tarball. Source. Okay, there we go. I think this is the one. Yes, I think this is the one. Okay. Okay. Okay, I think we're done. And then there we go. Open VPN GUI. Config files. Yeah, makes sense. There's no config file. Okay. And so the good news is, it's funny because there are two Open VPN softwares. One of them is OpenVPN Connect. The other is OpenVPN GUI.
Mm.
And the funny one is that OpenVPN Connect has more GUI than the OpenVPN GUI. And then
Heh.
OpenVPN GUI is better than OpenVPN Connect, at least in my experience. So I don't know.
Sounds very complicated.
Yeah, it is silly. It is very silly. Again, because so one of the reasons it's kind of strange is because a lot of what we do here at this point is open source software, right? So
Right.
it's really hard to find something that would be. Hold on. What's the problem here? Is caps lock enable?
Am I going
Okay,
to need to
whatever.
download OpenVPN 2 or?
Yes. So you're gonna have to. We're gonna have to download two pieces of software on. So one piece of software on the Windows machine and one piece of software on the Linux machine.
Okay.
And so on the Windows machine, I want you to install OpenVPN GUI and leave it at that for now. And on the Ubuntu machine, so what we're gonna do now is we're going to Google OpenVPN access server. Download. Okay. Okay. So let me know when you are at this page where you're offered to download the OpenVPN access server on Ubuntu. So what I did is first Googled OpenVPN access server download,
Yeah.
clicked on the third link, clicked install now, and then scrolled down to access server software packages, and then clicked on the Ubuntu link.
Okay.
Okay. Once you
Ubuntu access download. Is it Ubuntu 18 or 16?
18,
18, right?
yes, because that's the one we've installed.
Okay.
In fact, there is a more recent version of Ubuntu, which is Ubuntu 20. But because I wanted to run the access server, not only did I have to settle for Ubuntu instead of Pop OS, but I had to settle for version 18 instead of 20.
Okay. And do I basically just follow the guide that it's telling me to follow?
So what you do is in the command line, I want you to type sudo space su. So sudo space su. Then you type your password, and then I want you to copy paste this whole thing in the console line directly, and I believe that should work. It might take a little while, but it'll get there. Okay. So when this is done,
sudo su ubuntu. Okay, it won't let me copy paste.
you can just copy paste, like right click copy and right click paste. I believe that should work just fine. Like you just select all the
Oh, yeah,
command
okay.
line and
Yeah.
copy paste.
Okay, I downloaded the Windows. I don't want to get the name wrong.
Open VPN GUI. That's the one you need.
Okay.
So
Nope, that is
OpenVPN GUI
OpenVPN.
is an OpenVPN client, and then
Yeah.
the access server that we're going to be running on on Ubuntu is going to be the server, the OpenVPN server.
Okay.
And frankly enough, like once we've installed all of this bullshit, we're done with the hard part of the lab. Setting up the lab is more difficult than actually running it most of the time.
Yay.
Yeah, by far. Like it's not even comparable.
I'm not finding any OpenVPN GUI install.
So hold on. Where did
I did open VPN GUI download, then went to community download.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. Community
But
yeah, that's right. And then you scroll down until you find Windows 7, 8, 8.1, blah blah blah. Oh wait, there's actually a Windows 10 installer. So use that one even,
okay.
right? I kind of messed up. I installed an older one. No. Okay. Okay. Oh yeah, that's the one. Okay. Well, I guess I can just try remembering where it was. It was a file I needed to execute. Let's see if I can find it. Um. God damn it. Oh, where was it? Yeah, I'm actually just gonna look on it for it here. Yes. So let me know when you're done. When you're done, by the way, with your installs.
Okay. Uh, Software update is ready on Ubuntu.
Yeah, you can just ignore that. It's fine.
Okay.
Uh,
It seems like the Ubuntu update is done. And Windows has the application installed.
okay, so essentially you're done right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've installed OpenVPN access server. I'm just looking for like the command you have to run to actually get it started. I can't, for the life of me, I can't find it. Um, okay, let's see if this does it. Okay, yeah, okay, I found it. So now I want you to run
Yeah.
this command.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just so you cannot copy paste, by the way, from your host to your guest. Just
Yeah.
be careful with that.
Local slash open VPN as slash win slash
I don't know why I'm locked in caps. But this one. There we go.
No such file directory.
You're getting the same thing. What the hell is this? Okay. So I think I know what the deal is. So I suspect what's happened is okay. So here's what we're gonna do. Do you remember the several commands that I told you to just copy paste everything? Well, we're
Yeah.
actually gonna copy paste one command at a time. So
Okay.
we've essentially done the first command, but we haven't done. I believe the issue here is we haven't done the other three. So we're
Okay.
gonna
Should I
copy.
restart from the first command or
No. You don't have to
go
redo the
from the
first one.
second? Okay. Paste. The GNUPG thing, whatever it is, said did not found. Wait, no, it's because sudo.
Yeah, okay, that's what happened. Okay, that makes sense.
The second oh, I am dumb. I only copied one part of a command line.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah, you have to be careful
And
with that.
public key block.
You can always check my screen if it's more clear for you. You know, on when the window is smaller, it really shows you command 1, command 2, command 3, and 4. For me,
Yeah.
I'm done, I think. So yeah, okay, mine's working. We're just gonna we're just going to connect using the OpenVPN user. Okay, I'm not super
Okay.
happy about that, but at least that will work for sure. So okay, and this is really cool. So again, like this is in the context where we are John Smith. We we went back home in the middle of the pandemic, and our company put into place a VP like this Open VPN access server, and now we go on like the web page that they told us to use, and there we go. We can even install a client. So OpenVPN Connect recommend for your device Windows, and so we're actually just gonna click that. And it's actually, if you pay attention, it's actually going to just try to run OpenVPN Connect, which I've already installed on my machine, but we can just run it anyways because it's also going to install it as well as sort of, it's going to be running it as well as the credentials that John is going to need to log into the VPN server. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
Right. So now, if we run OpenVPN Connect, which I think is this one here. Okay, thank you. I agree. Okay. And I believe what we can do now, possibly, is just actually give it this. Let's see. Does this work? Yes. Okay. So now when we open OpenVPN Connect, all we have to do is give it the IP address, right? The same IP that we use to like log in on the web browser.
Yeah.
Just click accept. And then it's asking us for our credentials again. But this time it's asking us for the credentials inside the VPN Connect app. So we're still going to connect using OpenVPN. Right?
Right.
Profile name is fine. Port is optional. We're not going to touch anything. Import auto login profile. Connect after import. Connect after import. We're going to check. And then we're going to accept. Enter password. And let's see if this works. Yes, right. And so there we go. After we've done all of this, we, John Smith, are now connected through a VPN tunnel to that OpenVPN access server. Like that's it. We're just connected. And so now in an enterprise environment, what this would mean is that we now have access to the intranet, right? To the internal resources of the company.
Okay.
Right. Or if you're running this on your like Raspberry Pi or something, which you can, what this means now, and this is really cool. What this means now is that so you could be anywhere in the world, like on vacation or something, and you
Yeah.
can still find a way to connect to the inside of your network to manage your network from the outside. But not anyone can do it because you need your credentials to do it.
No.
Right.
Okay.
So as long as your password is something reasonable, you should be fine. Okay. So does what we have done here make sense? At least
Yes.
somewhat high level, right? Okay, so yeah, we're using a bunch of technologies here that are we are sort of starting to go in the territory of yeah, we're running something that's Linux and it's not super clear how it works or how it doesn't work at times and whatnot. So we don't like yeah, it's not perfect. It's not to say that Linux isn't stable, it's perfectly stable. It's just that configuring it can be a pain for sure. Especially if you're configuring servers and stuff like that. Like if you're using open source software and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If all that you plan to do is web browsing, however, you should have no problem using Linux. Okay. Now we're actually going to disconnect. So yeah, we're gonna stop using that connection because now so this was the if you remember the whiteboard, this was our first example where we connect to the thing that's behind the firewall.
Yeah.
In reality, what's more likely to happen, so one of two things can happen. I'm thinking about it. I don't think we're actually going to be configuring a whole lot of we're not going to be configuring firewall rules today. That's not necessary, I don't think, to really illustrate the purpose of a VPN. So what we're gonna do now, second example, is okay, we don't actually want to install this on like a server. We actually want to install OpenVPN on the firewall directly. And that's actually an option that's very very used very often.
Okay.
So how do we do this? Well, first the good news is we don't actually have to do command line on the firewall. That's a relief. What we have to do is access the firewall, web interface. And if you go in the menu for pfSense, you have a tab with VPN and you have a sub tab with OpenVPN.
Okay.
So pfSense actually has an integrated OpenVPN server. Really cool.
Yeah.
And so you see, I told you the access. So we saw the access server is super easy to configure, right? Out of the box. We barely have anything to do. And I've told you that that's because it's an enterprise grade solution. And that if we were to do that natively, we'd have to do a whole lot of command line and manual stuff.
Yeah.
What we're going to see on pfSense is sort of an in-between, right? We still have to set up some stuff, but it's not that bad. It's just like things aren't hidden from us, but the basic config works.
Okay.
So, are you on this page on pfSense, on the pfSense webpage?
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to add an OpenVPN connection. So you can have several servers running on one pfSense. For instance, you could have one server be dedicated for remote workers and then for like the IT team, and have another OpenVPN server dedicated for the finances team, and another one for, I don't know, whatever other team you could be running. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So disable this server, no. Server mode peer-to-peer is fine. UDP over on IPv4, that's fine. Tunnel layer 3, it's fine. Interface. So the interface is going to be like, what interface does the server listen on? So you remember that on our we're on our firewall, right? Our firewall has 3 interfaces. The question we are being asked is, what interface do we want the server to listen on?
Right.
So there is the WAN interface, which connects to the real world internet. There's the optional interface, which connects to our Windows machine. And then there's the LAN interface, which connects to our Linux machine. So which one do you think we want to listen on for the sake of this lab?
The WAN.
The WAN? So are you expecting someone to actually connect to our VPN server through the actual internet?
No, through
No.
the optional.
Right. So usually you'd be correct. Usually, like in a typical deployment, it'd just be the WAN. However, we are in a special case where the real WAN, like there's the real WAN, and then there's the test WAN,
Yeah.
and we want to run it on the test WAN, which isn't the real WAN.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah.
So, but again, this is because it's like we have 2 WANs. That's why.
Okay.
So we actually don't want WAN, we want optional 1, which is like the outside, right?
Right.
Local port 1194 is fine. Description, we don't care. Use a TLS key. We don't need that.
I clicked on something and I don't know how to get back there.
Okay, so what you can just do is just click add again, right? And that will reset anything that you've done. You go back and you just click on the add button again.
Okay.
So we just want to change WAN to opt1, and we want to disable use TLS key. Server certificate, there's only 1 of them. So web configurator. Oh, please don't tell me we're gonna have to set up. Okay, so see, okay. So see, remember when I talked about AES as the encryption function? I told you that there are a bunch of implementations.
Yeah.
Well, these are some of those.
Okay.
Right, so there's a lot of implementations for AES. We don't necessarily need to touch on it though. The basic one is fine. Again, for the sake of the lab. In a real world deployment, I do not recommend that you keep the basic setting. If you want more details as to like how to actually secure your VPN connection, like your OpenVPN setup, I suggest you can just look online, or like you can even ask me if you actually want to do it. But like, if for the viewers at home, you have really good guys online that can go into details as to what you should pick and why.
Okay.
Let's see. All this seems fine. Okay. So this is where it's starting to get a bit annoying. Hold on. Do we have to? Okay. Actually, maybe it's easier. So what if we do this? Does this work? Certificate authority. Right. So this is where it gets annoying. One thing that we have to set before we're capable of moving on is actually we have to do a thing that's called a certificate authority. So it's kind of annoying. We'll do that real quick. I'm not going to go into details as to what that means. We can go more into details during the regarding that during the HTTPS class.
Okay.
So let's see. CAs, we want to do add. Descriptive name is just local CA. Create an internal certificate authority. Just skip all of this. City is whatever. Let's just, we don't really need to do a whole lot more. And there we go. We've created a certificate authority. And I think this is fine. Actually, is it? Okay. We need to then go on. So once you've created the CA, the certificate authority, you need to create a certificate. So descriptive name is like VPN certificate. And then I believe you can just leave all the stuff by default. No, okay. You need to give it a common name. Right, so you got common name, you give it like VPN cert. And that should do it. Okay, so now we have a VPN certificate. So do you have a VPN certificate?
Not yet.
Okay, where are you? Where are you?
Now I'm just lost in the menu. I can't get back to. Can you just redo it from the beginning, please? I got
Okay, yeah,
lost.
sure. So I'll. So what you do is you go on CA. The first thing is CAs. You create this CA. Do you have you created this CA?
No, I mean like beginning.
Okay. So okay, go on the menus here.
Mhm.
Go under System, Cert Manager.
Okay.
Then under the CAs tab, I want you to click Add.
Yeah.
You give it a descriptive name, so you can call it local CA, for instance.
Okay.
You can leave the rest blank. I think it shouldn't be a problem. So let me know if that worked. And then you
Yeah.
click Save. And so normally you should have a CA right here.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you go under Certificates.
Okay.
You click Add. Create an internal certificate. You leave this. You need to give it a descriptive name. So you could give it like a VPN certificate, for instance.
Okay.
And then you need to give it a common name. You can give it the same name, like VPN cert or VPN certificate or just VPN. Like it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
Okay. So once that's done, you should have a VPN certificate here. So that you don't need to change anything else. Just go down to the bottom and click and hit save.
Hold on. Okay, DNS subject alt name values must be valid host names.
Wait, what? That's very strange. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna delete mine and we're gonna do the same. We're gonna do this together. So add and sign or sign descriptive name VPN certificate. Certificate authority. Okay, I don't need to change. Okay, common name. I need to give it a common name. So I'm gonna call it VPN. So far, so good.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I just hit save.
Okay, now it worked.
Okay, that's fine. Now we go back to VPN, open VPN. We click add again. Right. So let me make sure. So we're gonna do okay, device mode, we're actually gonna do layer 2. Interface, we're gonna do opt 1 again. Essentially redoing what we've done so far, everything we've done so far. Uncheck the user TLS key. Here in the server certificates, use VPN certificate. Oh, really? Did I forget this again? How to do this? Oh, wait. was this a? Hold on, I need to check something real quick. Oh, I fucked up. Okay, never mind. We need to remake that certificate. That was my bad. So VPN certificate again. And common name VPN. But this time, okay, under certificate type, select server certificate
Okay.
and then hit save. Then go back again in the VPN, open VPN setup. Okay. Layer 2. Interface opt 1. Don't use a TLS key. Local CA. Okay. VPN certificate. Well, there we go. So server certificate, you select VPN certificate.
Hold on, I'm still trying to make
Okay, the certificate.
type.
Yeah, no problem.
For some reason, I can't edit it.
Don't bother editing it. Just delete it, and actually you can't edit it. So just delete it and start over. Shouldn't take long.
Okay.
You should. So if the problem is you don't see it, you don't see where you can edit it. Here you have like a bar you can drag,
Yeah.
and at the very you can delete it here.
It isn't even giving me the option to delete it.
So be careful which one you're trying to delete. Are you trying to delete the VPN certificate, or are you trying to delete the web configurator default?
The VPN certificate.
Well, I mean, I have an icon right here, so I don't know. If that doesn't work, just make a new one. Like, don't even bother deleting the previous one. Just make a new one.
Descriptive name VPN certificate.
You might have to give it a different descriptive name then. But just VPN certificate 2. Like, who cares?
Common name VPN cert this time. Certificate type server certificate.
Yes.
Right. Save. Open VPN.
Right, so then you go back to OpenVPN. So, device mode is layer 2. Interface is opt 1. Do not use a TLS key. Server, under server certificate, select your VPN certificate, your server one.
Okay.
Then scroll down. I believe all of this should be okay. Okay. And this works. There we go. And then when you're done with this, just hit save. And you actually have a server running. Like, there we go. So I'm not sure it's actually running, but it is installed. And to check if it's running, I think you go under status.
Okay.
And open VPN. And yeah, see status, it is running. So finally, we've done it. We have a server certificate that is in fact running. A server VPN server, excuse me, that is running.
Okay.
And now what we do? So now you might start asking, okay, that's great and all, but like, how do I connect to it? So I believe that what you do, you go on your Windows machine, you open up OpenVPN GUI. So you will see it as a tray icon, right? It's like a little LCD screen with a lock pad on it.
Hold on, I need to open GUI first. Okay, yep.
Okay, so that is our OpenVPN GUI. That's what we're going to be using to connect to the OpenVPN server here. What we're going to do is first we need to create a configuration file for the remote user that can connect. So what
Okay.
we're going to do on the pfSense,
Yeah.
we're going to go under System, User Manager, and now it's unable to connect. What the hell is up? What's up with this? Okay, for some reason, like, did my pfSense just die or something? Okay, well, I can't get it to work right now. I don't want to go through another half an hour of troubleshooting for this. So I'm
Yeah.
just going to tell you what we were going to do.
Okay.
Um, so the idea is that we would create a user. So John, right? John's user. And so on the pfSense firewall, we can give John some privileges. For instance, we can say it's an administrator, or it's just a regular user, and here's what he has access to on this firewall, right? We might even
Yeah.
be able to say, hey, you know what? This user can't even log into the firewall at all. What would be the point of that? Well, the point would be, what if that user can only access the VPN, like connect to the VPN, but then not be able to access the firewall management interface? That would make
Yeah.
sense, right? Right. So we would create that new user, give it the privileges we want, and then what we would do is create a user. So again, under CA and certificates, we would
Okay.
create a user certificate for John.
Okay.
And then under the OpenVPN tab, you
Yeah.
then have an option to generate a configuration file for OpenVPN GUI based on John's credentials, based on John's certificate that we just created.